Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm the co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe.
Hey,
Good morning, Bill.
How are you?
I'm great. How was trivia last night?
Trivia
By the way,
thanks.
people can hang out with you anytime.
Yeah,
at
they
these
can.
Trivia
They
places.
come and make fun of me and take free beer off of me. It was a lot of fun. I was at a dry dock. I'm at Blue Spruce on Tuesdays. Tonight, I'm out at Molly Brown Distillery, which is way north, like 80 seconds. So way north. I'm out there tonight, 7 o'clock. Really nice location. Last night was fun. The family came out last night. We have a cousin in town from Virginia. Haven't seen him in about 2 years. He was flying in, but he's staying with family on the far side of town. So since the airport's on this side of town, he just came over to trivia, and we figured, hey, we'll just meet there, hang out at the bar. And in-laws came, my kids came, and they played trivia. And that didn't do so well. Did okay.
They didn't get your third-degree connections between the band and what they did Tuesday 25 years ago.
They did, but the thing is, I run those songs unless it's obscure. I don't run those songs until about a minute to a minute 30 left in the question. And you start at 3:30.
Gotcha.
So because I play it too early, that's just a giveaway. That I need you to know.
Some folks, apparently.
So, but it was funny that I would start playing that song, and either like one of my kids or my wife would go, "Oh, come on," okay, because they'd get the connection. Yeah, and then there was one where it was an early song that kind of an early tease, and she turns around, she looks at me, and she points. I'm like, "Yeah," and she goes, "Okay," so she connected it. So they did get the weirdness that I was doing, which was nice. And I threw some songs in that I knew that our girls that were coming, they would catch really quickly. So I kind of gave a little nod to them. Again, it's not like breaking total rules because I still sonically play stuff that'll work inside the bar, stuff that'll still play. But there are times I'll pick a certain song based on a band they're absolutely familiar with. So they'll catch it much quicker than everybody else. They'll know in the first couple of beats. I did that for my son and cousin Brian as well. One of the bands they really like. And I knew based on the third beat, they'd know the song immediately. But, don't play it too early to let the people that actually know the answer know. And, give them 35 a minute to actually get that done. So it was so much fun.
That's great.
Yeah. Next week. Oh, okay. Next week. You want to show up? Dry Docked Brewery, Hamden Chambers, Star Wars trivia next Wednesday.
There you go.
It is. You got to be there, but you got to be there early because probably by 6 o'clock, it'll be standing room only. People show out for this one. This is going to be a lot of fun. And I'm a Star Wars nerd. So I changed my announcements and stuff for the show. Based on it, I transition into as if we were in the Star Wars universe. So I do a series of announcements that are based on. I will do conversion from galactic credits into how much your beer is worth. Yes, I am a dork. I have so much fun with it. Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. So yeah, Star Wars trivia, Dry Dock.
Did you see Mark Hamill's tweet the other day? Speaking of Star Wars,
no, what?
That Joe Biden's the best president in ever. I think was it?
Oh man, well, Luke didn't bring balance to the Force. He's not doing it that way either. So no,
I didn't follow. I'm not into Star Wars. I
know.
I know the basics. Science fiction just goes right by me, bro.
The Star Wars universe is so much fun.
I can tell you every detail of the Jason Bourne movies, but Star Wars. And then Krista Kafer had a pretty funny response to Mark Hamill's tweet about Joe Biden being the best president ever. And her response was, which planet are you talking about?
Oh, that's good. That is good. Yeah, I could go way deep on Star Wars. In fact, you really want to go deep. You go to one of the obscure characters inside the universe that very, very few people realize is actually a really, really dirty guy. He doesn't get the credit that he does inside the movie. Bib Fortuna. It's fantastic, but he's a minor character, and you only see him for a little while, and he's wonderful. I can name all the bounty hunters. I mean, I can go hard on this one. So I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this. So if you like Star Wars, if you want to get some free beer, come on out to Dry Dock next Wednesday.
They do free beer and trivia?
Oh yeah, we give away. And in fact, Dry Dock, if you want to play trivia, based on what I run around town and do, they've got some of the best prize packages out there. They award $25 in free beer for the first place team, $10 in free beer for the second place team. And then I give away between 4 and 6 free beers between rounds 1 and 2. So I'm giving away, and it's $100 or so in free beer.
People are having a good time, it sounds like.
Yeah, we have a lot of time. And the free beer between rounds 1 and 2 is what I call stupid trivia. It's just a matter of, I just want you to win a beer. That's it. I'm not going to make this hard. So I take whatever the answer is for question 12 on round number 1, which is our last question. Whatever that answer is, I then ask a series of questions. That is always the answer. You don't have to know a thing. You just have to walk up and remember what question 12 answers was, and you get free beer. It is that easy. Last night it was Thomas Jefferson. So I go and I research Thomas Jefferson, and I do a series of trivia questions about Thomas Jefferson. A week before that, it was Colorado. So yeah, so again, and they're fun. They're fun stuff that you'll learn a little bit of things, but you don't have to know anything. All you got to do is just walk up to me between the two things when I'm playing stupid trivia and just repeat the last answer, and you get beer.
Do you remember that Office episode where they go play trivia?
No, I don't.
And there's a group in the office, and everybody knows this. There's a group in the office where everybody's really smart, and you know they're gonna go do they're going to form their team. They're going to win all that stuff. Yeah. And then there's the guys that, like myself, that would just show up because someone told me there's free beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And they end up winning.
Oh,
that group does.
Oh my God.
The latter group does.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And it just drives the kind of nerdy, smart kids, that group
that's
wild. So.
That's funny because I've got a couple of regular groups. And they each have their own kind of specialties.
Seriously.
Yeah, and they have a lot of fun. There's a group, I'm going to see these guys next week. They always call themselves the Metachlorians because they're huge Star Wars fans. But there's sci-fi and nerd stuff they're really, really good at. I got another bunch of gentlemen that roll as the Brew Crew. And it's a pretty universal name, but they have that one here, and they play a couple other places. One of the guys in the Brew Crew is one of the average male dancers that performs during the Nuggets halftime shows. You know, the average dudes. Yeah, right. He's one of them. He's one of the dancers. A guy named Brian, a really good dude. And no, shout out if you're listening, Brian. I don't think he is. He's not this early in the morning, but they are fantastic at sports. That's the differentiator. Yeah. Most of the rest of the people inside of the bar aren't the sports aficionados. These dudes nail it. But there was one, and I'll tell the story just for a sec. One day there was I forgot what the question was. It was a sports question. They should have hit it out of the park, and they didn't, and they ended up third. I'm like, and so I come over and I see Brandon. I'm like, dude, what's up, man? That should have been right in your wheelhouse. And he stops. He goes, and he looks over at the guy who's the Nuggets dancer guy, and Brian. And he goes, new rule. Brian is not allowed to touch the phone because that's how you answer. And Brad goes, shut up. And what happened was Brian thought he knew it, so he grabbed the phone because they put the phone in the middle of the table. And he grabbed the phone and pushed it, and it was the wrong answer. And like, what did you do? Because you can't change your answer afterwards. So he's the reason they got the sports question wrong. So Brian can't touch the phone anymore.
Can't touch the phone.
Yes, that's a new rule.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, good morning to everybody. It's going to be another beautiful day in the Mile High City. And we're gearing up for a whole morning of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So get the coffee brewing, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. We're going to give you an update on the Trump trials just after the news. They begin again today, took yesterday off. Wednesdays, they're taking off. Thursday, they're back in. But there's a big, really big U.S. Supreme Court decision or oral arguments today that will absolutely affect the future of this country.
Yeah.
This is a big one. Yeah, we're going to get into this and what does the immunity of the presidency look like? Dr. Tom Copeland, Director of Research at the Centennial Institute, big kind of viral article in the Gazette. He's going to join us about kind of when helping hurts. You know, when we have too much government, too much services, and essentially why it's never enough. He'll be joining us in the 8 o'clock hour or 7 o'clock hour, 8 o'clock hour. William Wolfe, founder and executive director of the Center for Baptist Leadership. They are going after the woke Baptist churches in the Southern Baptist Convention. And that one's going to be interesting. You want to see Bill and William go after this one? This will be an interesting one.
It'll depend on his premise and some other stuff. I got some questions.
And then we'll give you an update on all the college protests taking place. I mean, this is wild. They're bringing in the National Guard at this point to try to get control of these college campuses.
This is crazy.
You know, there's so much to talk about that. Mike Johnson was there yesterday. Benjamin Netanyahu.
Easy for you to say.
Benjamin Netanyahu put out a statement, and then Hamas supporting the college students. Oh my gosh.
When when the terrorist organization comes out and supports what you're doing, I think it's time to rethink your life choices.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
There we go.
That's the phrase there. All right, let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning. Now, is Star Wars the one with Spock?
That's how I feel.
I'm joking, Billy.
I will hurt you.
I had to see if you were awake.
I appreciate
47 and clear in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 70s. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, former President Trump returns to court in New York this morning. Nobody knows what's going on in this trial. Most Americans know it's all about Trump being derailed from his campaign. George Washington law professor Jonathan Turley.
This case is quickly becoming incomprehensible. I mean, the newest theory that they gave just as the trial was starting is that we have another dead misdemeanor. And the misdemeanor is that Trump conspired by promoting his own election unlawfully. But they don't explain really where the unlawful part is. They also don't explain how denoting this as a legal expense later affected the 2016 election. It just doesn't seem to matter to anyone in that courtroom that this is utter nonsense.
He was on Fox News last
to that
night.
point, and we're going to cover this tomorrow too, but you have a guy that paid, supposedly paid hush money after the campaign was done. And so that payment a year later affected the campaign previously, a year the logic, all right.
There is no logic. It's all a bunch of garbage. Trump, you know what, this morning, I don't know if you saw this, guys. He was met with cheers this morning from construction workers. It was pretty amazing. Chance of 4 more years in USA. So before he goes to court, man, he's just mingling with New Yorkers, and he feels like he may be able to flip New York. I don't know if he can do that, but he's going to get a lot of Democrats but voting for him.
I mean, this is a very valid point. Mitt Romney, John McCain, George W. Bush were not getting that types of receptions in downtown Manhattan, the Bronx, Harlem.
Absolutely
nothing like that. So, I mean, it is, and I know Republicans wanted that. They longed for that.
Yeah.
And here you have a guy that's getting it. So
it's great. And then you see President Biden on the stump yesterday reading everything on the teleprompter. Okay, everything. So, a lot of times on the prompter you'll have little notes like pause, meaning to pause. Don't read pause, but just pause and wait.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause.
That is very
Let's hear it
funny.
one more time. Let's hear it one more time.
4 more years. Pause.
there is so much there. First of all, there's no energy there. I mean, the guys in the room are like, oh, that's our cue.
4 more years. Yeah, well, he's pausing all right. Pause. Oh man, it's classic. So by the way, his campaign continues on TikTok despite signing the bill on Wednesday that could lead to its ban. So you know what, he's read pause like 30 times while he's been president and vice president for that matter. Pro-Hamas nut jobs on campuses across the country. Universities are heavily funded by Qatar. Qatar supports Hamas, and college students have been indoctrinated with hate for Jews. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson at Columbia University in New York on Wednesday.
And today I'm here to proclaim to all those who gnash their teeth and demand to wipe the state of Israel off the map and attack our innocent Jewish students, this simple truth: neither Israel nor these Jewish students on this campus will ever stand alone. Today, Hamas issued an endorsement statement of the protesters on this campus. They called them the future leaders of America. It is detestable.
Just incredible. I never thought I would hear that, 20 years ago. You're supporting Jews, and you hear these Hamas screams in the background. Just incredible. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. A verdict is possible today in the trial of former Clear Creek County deputy who shot and out. They used a taser and beanbag rounds, but then Andrew Buin opened fire. The Glass family says that he was having a mental breakdown. So we'll see what happens in that case. 43 in Louisville, 44 in Parker, 47 in Denver. Nuggets back at it tonight. Game 3 against the Lakers in LA. Denver has a 2-0 lead, of course. NFL draft kicks off tonight. Broncos with the 12th overall pick. Avalanche try to take a 2-1 lead tomorrow night against Winnipeg at home. Rockies getaway day at Coors this afternoon. The Padres and the Rocks last night, 5-2. Colorado loses it. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
KNUS 5-day forecast calls for active spring weather conditions through the 5-day stretch. Showers and thunderstorms, strong to maybe a few isolated severe storms further to our east this Thursday afternoon. High temps still unseasonably warm today, mid to upper 70s, near 50 tonight. Trending cooler Friday, 60s, 50s this weekend. On and off periods of light to some moderate rain, a little thunderstorm activity as well Friday right through Sunday. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer on 710 KNUS.
All right. It's going to be a busy day today. Donald Trump's back in court. This from CNN. Donald Trump's New York criminal hush money trial will continue later this morning with more testimony from the prosecution's first witness, David Pecker, the former publisher of the National Enquirer. Pecker has spoken about 2 of the 3, quote, catch and kill deals, but pause when we play it.
Yeah. See, now you're reading the thing.
Oh, that's right. We got to do
the Biden. I just told Jeff in his ear that we need to pause because we need to do this. Yeah. And that's just for you, the radio listeners.
Right.
Yeah, on the stream, we can't play this. So I've got it on a different source that doesn't share it with the video people, the people watching us here. You don't get to see it. Yeah. I'm a little mad about it, if you can tell. Love the song, though.
I mean, all the copyright stuff's so crazy at this point. I mean, it's so if anybody's on Instagram, and you build a reel on Instagram, they let you use pretty much whatever song you want to, right?
Yeah.
So then you share the song and the reel that you build on Instagram over to Facebook, who is all owned by the same company, and then you get a copyright warning.
Yeah, and the thing that I really wish, I understand the copyright warnings. I get it. I wish that they would understand, a little bit of a tangent here, that there are songs through Instagram and TikTok that are becoming popular because they're played on Instagram and TikTok.
100%. Yep.
There are songs on the charts right now. You can name some, but nobody cares. That are on the top 40 charts right now because they're on TikTok.
Yep.
So stop it. This helps you. This helps you spread. If we have this on the YouTubes and you hear the song, you may go download the song. You may go, I haven't heard that in a while. That's fun. Oh, let me play that for my friend.
Right.
It's exposure, but I get it. They made it. They can do what they want.
It's a mess right now.
Yeah. Speaking of messes, we're talking court.
Yeah. So here comes the judge. We're back into court again in New York City. Donald Trump had asked to go to the big case today, the really big one, which is in Washington, D.C. While Trump is on trial in New York this morning, the Supreme Court will hear arguments in the blockbuster case of whether he can claim immunity in his separate federal election subversion case. How far does presidential immunity go?
Ew. Again,
and they've debated this. Like one judge at one point asked I think Trump's attorneys, can Donald Trump order the assassination of his political opponents?
Yeah.
And get away with it.
And I think one of the arguments that I heard today they're going to ask is, if this is true, could that mean that Joe Biden could order the execution of sitting Supreme Court justices?
Yeah.
Would that be okay? If it is, no. And again, this to me just smacks of an excuse of a middle school kid rather than a serious adult, because rationally makes no sense to figure that the president has immunity in perpetuity. It makes sense that you do not indict a sitting president while they're in the office, because that gums up the work and they can't then continue to do the job because, again, you're pulling them into the court system. Post-presidency seems reasonable. If they did the crimes, seems reasonable to be able to charge them for crimes they did commit in office. Seems okay.
And my take on this is that in this particular case, you have a president, former president, that's running for president again, so leading Republican candidate, and the left is utilizing lawfare in an effort to gum up, like you just said, not the presidency, not the work of the presidency, but the work of running for president. And you know, the minute you're done with office, the minute you're done, Barack Obama's done with office, Republicans can just bring a ton of charges, and that guy's going to spend the next 25 years of his life defending himself in every possible case and jurisdiction around the country.
Yeah. Here's a question I got. Where are the charges? Where are they? That's
yeah,
a question
I know.
I've got.
And this is, I mean, it is totally unprecedented what they've done to Donald Trump.
But the issue is where the charges. If Barack Obama did something wrong, where are the charges?
Mm-hmm.
If Bill Clinton did something wrong in office, where are the charges? If George W. Bush did something wrong, where are the charges? That's the issue.
And what's the statute of limitations? So can we go back
even
now?
then?
Can we go back?
Even then,
so you're arguing
been
these
nothing.
guys are innocent,
No, I'm just,
and that there's, you know, and that's the difference with him
I
and
wouldn't
Donald
say
Trump.
innocent. I wouldn't say innocent. I would sit there because, again, I don't know that for certain. I can't say. I will not grant a blanket statement saying all these people are innocent of never doing any crimes. I get some serious questions about Bill, real serious questions about Bill Clinton. But the idea being, if they did all these crimes while in office, where are the charges post? It's this assumption that everyone is going to be charged with all these crimes. And I understand the threat of, oh, well, when Biden leaves office, he's going to be charged for all these crimes. Okay, I'll call your bluff. Let's do it. Let's see, because if he did crimes, I am absolutely okay with charging him for them. But guess what? They don't exist. And we know they don't, because James Comer recently told us they don't. And so that's the idea, is this threat of, oh, Biden's doing all these crime things, and now we're going to charge him when we're out of office. No, you're not. And I'll tell you why you're not, because you're not even going to impeach him. That's the issue. And so there isn't anything. So this whole idea that the president has to be covered from all the crimes he's committing. How many crimes do we think the president commits during a term? How many times does he have to do that?
You're arguing that these crimes and that these indictments are legitimate.
Yeah.
And I don't think they are at all. I think this is entirely political lawfare in an effort to go after a candidate they don't like, a president they don't like, and they're using a system and abusing a legal system in order to do so.
Abusing it. Now, I might be able to get there with you with Bragg, because I do think that Bragg is stretching the limits, the rules, and what is reasonable. However, Letitia James, he did the fraud. We had fraud in a previous case. We had a fraud in a charity. We had fraud in a university. His CFO said, yep, did the fraud. They had the two books. That's it. And Jack Smith has brought the case, and it's fair to be adjudicated. And again, Trump innocent until proven guilty, but he had the classified documents. We know this, and he's not supposed to, and they'd subpoenaed the documents back. So, I mean,
here's why
let him go to court and prove it.
This case, this U.S. Supreme Court case, is a really big deal because it gets into checks and balances. So, yeah, we can get into these particular cases right now.
Yeah.
But 100 years from now, 50 years from now, the role of the judiciary as it relates to the executive branch is really what's at discussion here. Okay. And that's why I said that, what's happening in Manhattan, gag orders,
explain that
all that stuff. How can the judiciary hold the executive accountable. And because, I'll grant you, Bill, the idea that the president of the United States cannot order the assassination of Supreme Court justices, right? Can't do it. Yeah. I don't want to live in a country where that happens.
Depends on immunity.
So there are restrictions on the executive. But can the judiciary bring charges against the executive? And at what point, when, how late into the presidency? During the presidency? No. After the presidency? Maybe. Because even in New York, with Alvin Bragg and Letitia James, you're dealing with the judiciary.
No, you're not. No. Judiciary is the court.
Right. Yeah, that's trying them. Yeah. Now, they've brought trials.
Now, tell me this. Tell me.
What court? Hang on a second.
Hold on. What judge and court officer brought charges against Donald Trump?
You're saying the attorney general is not the judiciary?
The attorney general isn't necessarily part of the people that are adjudicating the case.
It's the top lawyer in the state.
Yes, I understand that. But what I'm saying, things like Department of Justice, that's under the executive branch, because that's the idea, is that he's using this. He's not necessarily using the judiciary, because judiciary would be the Supreme Court branch. It'd be the branch of the justices. So you'd have to show me the justices are doing it. You'd have to show me the judges are doing this. The idea that prosecutors they're elected officials. I don't put them necessarily under the same purview as the judiciary bringing this. It is not.
But they're not part of the executive branch. You have three branches of government.
Department of Justice is. Well, technically it's
separate. Tried. It's tried. So you can bring charges, but it's actually tried in the judiciary.
Yeah, but the judiciary does not bring the charges. The Supreme Court never brings charges. No court does. But that's the responsibility of prosecutors.
That's the top court. The Supreme Court doesn't do criminal.
I understand, but I'm just disagreeing with your use of the term the judiciary is doing this. No, there are prosecutors and there are things that are doing this. The broad generalization of the judiciary would involve the court system. No, the court system is not doing this. I disagree with that on its face.
But that's the Supreme Court discussion.
But even local things. No, the Supreme Court discussion today is whether or not he has immunity. It's not the role of judiciary.
Not he. The president.
Yeah, but again,
the presidency.
But that's the judiciary didn't bring this case.
From
the judiciary didn't ask.
Who do they have immunity from?
Prosecution.
And that
would be
in the executive branch?
No.
So see, that's why it's an actual really important case.
If it's in the Department of Justice, yes, it would be, because that's the argument, is that Biden is using the Department of Justice to go after his political opponent, despite the fact that we have proof that Donald Trump was doing exactly that. But we can leave that on the table for something later.
I'm getting to why this is a really important case 50, 100 years from now.
Again, let's just move on from the idea of judiciary. I don't want to argue this term, but I disagree with the blanket statement that the judiciary is doing this. I disagree, because there are a hell of a lot of conservative justices out there that aren't doing a thing. And I feel that you are coloring them inaccurately by that statement. I feel you're being unfair to legions of conservative justices across this country by saying the judiciary is going after Donald Trump. I don't think that's fair. I'm just asking you to maybe use a different room.
But when you get into the actual constitutional question here, not Donald Trump, not the constitutional question that the Supreme Court justices are going to be looking at is what, when you look at checks and balances and how these different branches hold each other accountable. What can they do? What can't they do? I agree with you in the argument that the executive branch, the leader of the executive branch, does not have total immunity. I agree with you in that. Because I don't want to live in a country where Joe Biden can order the assassination of Supreme Court justices.
But in theory, that is Trump's argument in front of the court. And that's the tough, because he talks about the fact that the executive of this country needs total immunity. He says total. And he says that routinely in public. That's what he's arguing for. He's arguing for something you said he doesn't have.
And this is why it's being argued at this level. I do not want to live in a country where the judiciary, and you can go, that's not, I don't like that term. I don't like it. The judiciary cannot go after the chief executive either, because I think that's an imbalance of power.
Well, they can't go after the chief executive because the chief executive can't be charged. That's from the Department of Justice and Office of Legal Counsel. That's their directive. That's why
he's in office.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we've all agreed on that, right?
But once he leaves office, he's no longer the executive.
And how long does that stay?
Well, he's not the executive unless he gets into the office again.
And this is where I think you're going to get into a lawfare, and I think it's going to explode. Like, look, it goes back to all these independent counsels that it started with one. It started with Whitewater.
Yeah.
And now it's constant.
Oh yeah.
And it's used as a tool to go after political opponents.
Yep, absolutely.
And I don't like that.
No, I don't like it either.
So
but it also doesn't mean that Donald Trump needs immunity in this issue. And once he leaves the executive branch, he's no longer the executive and should be able to be charged. And I am wholeheartedly in favor of charging Joe Biden, Barack Obama, and anybody else for crimes they commit while in office.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But you
absolutely.
don't want it to be abused, right? And I don't want it to be abused either.
Now, here's the thing. The question of abuse to me is a cart before the horse. There is this assumption, and that's the idea. It's just like in your idea that this is an assumption of political lawfare in order to hurt Donald Trump. That is an assumption that is made that I don't think is borne out by the facts on the table. I understand why you come to that conclusion, but I don't think the facts belay that. And so the idea being, okay, you think that there's going to be 1,000 charges or so that'll be brought against Joe Biden, go right ahead. If you can get them through the process of the prosecutors, you can get them in front of a grand jury, and you think the charges will stick, go right ahead. If you think that he's done something wrong, yes, please do it. But you got to get through the process. And that's the thing, though, is that we've got people that have shown up with cases and they've said, okay, we think we can win these. And they've gone in front of grand juries, and the grand juries have said yes. And I understand the statement about grand juries can indict a ham sandwich, but still, these are average voters that have seen it. So the difficulty is you have to show me that Joe Biden manipulated the investigation, manipulated the prosecution, and then manipulated the grand jury. That is a massive amount of control for a man that we just played a thing where he read the pause instruction on the teleprompter. Mm-hmm. That is a massive amount of conspiracy for a guy who's a doddering old man. I don't believe it.
And where I think you miss it is there is a concerted effort, and they have said so. Mm-hmm. They've developed organizations to do this.
Yeah.
To go after any person who has ever worked with Donald Trump with frivolous lawsuits, charges, in an effort to make sure that, one, nobody ever works for him again, and two, to remove conservatives, get their law licenses gone, to go after their law licenses.
I would like to see
this idea that it's just totally benign and neutral just isn't true.
Well, I didn't say it's totally benign and neutral, but I'm saying the lawfare, and they're going after Trump specifically because he is the political opponent. I disagree with that. I think there's some things that are, of course, wrapped up into it, Alan Bragg, but we don't have anything as direct as we had under Donald Trump. And if you can show me the frivolous lawsuits that lawyers have lost their law license over something frivolous, I'm more than willing to entertain that conversation. So far, the people that have lost their law licenses all deserved it. All did exactly
that's
what
where
they
I
needed.
disagree.
Okay, so what example do you have, though?
Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Give us a call on, if you'd like to join the conversation, 303-696-1971. The other one is gag order decision looms. Meanwhile, the judge has not yet ruled on the district attorney's motion to sanction Trump for allegedly violating the gag order. Prosecutors want the judge to fine Trump $1,000 per violation. There would be 10 violations. It'd be $10,000. So you've got three major legal issues going on right now. You've got the Manhattan hush money payment trial and witnesses there. You got the gag order that they're waiting to hear from on that. And then you've got the high stakes SCOTUS arguments, which I think actually has the biggest implications on the future of this country. So we'll continue to watch all that and track that. Give us a call and tell us what you think about this. 303-696-1971 or text us on the 710 KNUS app. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. The U.S. Supreme Court will hear arguments today in a historic case which is set to decide whether former presidents are immune from criminal prosecution. Lawyers for Donald Trump and special counsel Jack Smith will make their cases to the court after Trump was charged with attempting to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Smith insists former leaders aren't above the law and that Trump can be prosecuted. Lawyers for Trump have invoked the Constitution, arguing that he has immunity from indictment related to actions taken in office. Hungary is hosting the European edition of the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC. It brings together various European and American conservative politicians. Pablo Gutierrez reports.
Among some of the featured speakers for this year's CPAC conference in Budapest is the Dutch far-right politician Geert Wilders. This is the third year of CPAC Hungary, an annual conference affiliated with the right wing of the American Republican Party. Prime Minister Viktor Orban shares many of the same views as the most conservative GOP factions.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Bill Show. It's already spicy this morning. Boy. We start off so good, Bill, and then
we do.
and then the Trump trials.
I know. It's just like this thing. And I want to know from listeners, I mean, 303, 696-1971, what am I missing? I mean, here on Can US, you hear over and over and over again about this being lawfare, about their going after Donald Trump, that this is Joe Biden's Department of Justice doing this. What am I missing? Well, what have you heard that I haven't heard? What have you been exposed to? What information do you have that I don't have? Because so far, I get nothing.
So if you see documents that the Biden administration is coordinating with the Department of Justice to target, like the White House is helping direct the targeting of some of these investigations, that would change your mind?
If it was targeting investigations based on political gains, yes. If it is, hey, this person's doing crimes, let's go see if they're doing the crimes and go after them, that's a little bit different. If it is, this is my political opponent and I need you to do this, and the example I'd give would be something along the lines of when Donald Trump was trying to replace the director of, the FBI or National Security? Attorney General. He's trying to replace the Attorney General post 2020 election. And the guy that he wanted to put there said, yes, I understand that there's been research and everything else, but I will come out and say that, yes, we have fraud in the election for you. And he was trying to put that guy in charge. That guy's actually losing his law license because of doing that. Because a little illegal. So, yeah.
What was illegal?
The idea that he came out and was going to falsely claim that that the election was stolen. Because after being named the Attorney General, that was the issue. And there are some things about false representation. I don't remember what the issue is, but he's going to lose his license because of it. Yeah. Not a cool thing to come up there as a, official. But we know that. And so you show me that? Yeah, I'm on board with you. I'm on board with you. But that's the thing, is we have it on one side. We don't have it on the other, but the assumption is it's always on the other side. That's the weird part in all this. And I'm not sitting here and saying that's huge Biden supporter. I'm just saying that, can we have a little bit of consistency? Just a little bit when we're having this conversation.
I don't, I think that's where you and I disagree. I think, I think that it doesn't dawn on Republicans to do this stuff naturally, the way they think about stuff. I want to look at, utilizing the nuclear option, investigations after investigations after investigations. And then it gets opened up by the left in these directions, and Republicans then go, wow, this is the way we got to fight. And I just don't think our country's better for it. I don't think our country's better when we engage in the nuclear option on judges. I don't think it's better when we unleash Congress to do all these investigations on political opponents. And this is now chapter 3 of this, of what I think is the worsening of American government.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely it is. I would totally agree with you on that one. Now let's go back to an earlier part of our conversation where you talked about the use of the independent counsel. Remind me what political party was in charge and did the first big.
They started on that one.
Yeah. So the idea that you say
even
that
Ken Starr said that was a bad one.
But so I disagree with you with the idea that Republicans don't think about it this way.
Mm-hmm.
They're the Republicans. They did it. They absolutely did. Yeah, absolutely. So,
but on the judges, it was the Democrats. The nuclear option, going nuclear on Supreme Court justices. So not having 60 votes, going to 50+1.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Wasn't there one party that refused to hold a hearing about a judge? I remember. I think a guy McConnell was in charge of the Senate at that time, I think. But they refused to hold a Supreme Court.
Right.
Yeah, justice was open.
There's precedent for that too. But I'm talking. But you're changing the subject.
No.
The question was the nuclear option, which was, which I thought,
Well, no, it was what your issue was is that it's like, hey, we're going to change the rules about how we elect a Supreme Court justice, and I'm just bringing up we have the other party that said, nope, we're not even going to do our constitutionally mandated duty, which was to give the president's nominee a hearing. Wouldn't even do that or take a vote. Said nope. So again, if we're going to sit here and say that one party's doing stuff that's naughty, yes, absolutely. That was dumb to do the nuclear option. Yes. But yet there's another party that said nothing at all. We're not going to do anything.
And this type of changing of the government, I just don't like it. I think, from my opinion, that's what Democrats are doing with lawfare now. And they're going to turn it into what was generally the last independent institution that we looked at into now, political operations and to go after political opponents. All right, we're getting calls here. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Lots of text messages coming in. We can go to Pete in Colorado Springs. Pete, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Pete.
My view on this is I think that Trump has made some major mistakes, the way he's handled himself. I don't think these are felonies, and I I don't think they should be tried in a court of law. But where I do see an injustice is the way Trump has been treated as far as things like before he even takes the oath of office, you had Democratic politicians coming out in and saying, we're going to impeach him for no reason. And that is on the record.
Yeah.
You had numerous Democrats say, we will impeach him. And then they started, and both impeachments were a sham.
Yep.
Okay. Now, when you talk about the Supreme Court, it goes all the way back to Justice Thomas, where they made things up. The way Republican nominees are treated compared to Democrat nominees are totally different. I think we can all agree on that.
No, we can't, Pete. I'm sorry. Not at all. Don't agree with you.
Brett Kavanaugh?
Okay.
When did we Kavanaugh
Brett
anybody
Kavanaugh,
else?
Where was a sexual assault? Robert Bork. When was the last time a Democratic nominee was held up like this? Bill?
When was the last time that a Republican nominee for Supreme Court wasn't allowed a hearing or a vote? When did that happen?
Okay, but that's politics, and that's within the written rules that they are allowed to do that.
Not
but
really.
To come up, hold
that's
on,
okay.
to come up with false claims of sexual assault is much different. And if you're going to compare the two, that's on you. Okay, Brett Kavanaugh.
No.
All of a sudden, hold on, wait. Brett Kavanaugh went through numerous hearings on his march up the ladder as a judge, and none of this was ever brought up until suddenly he's a Supreme Court nominee. Same thing with Justice Thomas. All of a sudden, they are sexual predators, and there was no record of it, no claims, no accusations before that. Now, if you think that any Democrat has ever gone through that, holding up a nomination, that's politics. You can say it's dirty politics, but it's nowhere near what the Republican nominees have been.
Well, here, Pete, the thing is,
here's another thing. I'll give you another example. Hillary Clinton legally should be in prison for having a private server that had government documents on it.
No, it didn't.
Not only that, she took. Yes,
That's
it
incorrect.
did. Yes, it did.
No, it didn't.
Read the report.
I did.
The-
She didn't.
the
She did not have
FBI
government documents on the
Yes,
server.
yes, she did.
No, she
Yes,
didn't.
She did. So,
No.
well, we can disagree.
Okay, we can disagree. And unfortunately, Pete, we gotta. I don't mean to cut you off, but we have to get to You Choose the News. And we
Yeah,
have anything in
Pete,
here.
I really appreciate the call. Great points, Pete from Colorado Springs. His line will be open 303-696-1971. When we come back, You Choose the News. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's that time in the morning. You choose the news.
Yes, it is the time of the morning where everybody gets to laugh a little bit and make fun of course, me. Well, that's pretty much the rest of the show. But still, this is You Choose the News, everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, where we have scoured the interwebs for moments this morning to find these ridiculous stories to play this fake radio news game show. Wait till you get a handle on the headlines we have for you today. But we only have a few minutes because the people in charge have no idea we're doing this. It is a secret. They wake up in about 8 minutes. Got to make this quick. Alrighty, Jeff Hunt, Blake Olson from the newsroom. Here are your choices this morning, sirs. Headline number 1, things escalate quickly. Headline number 2, someone should tell them it's fake. Headline number 3, a reminder of who's in charge. And headline number 4, testing a parent's love. Alrighty, Mr. Hunt.
Considering this happened this morning, things escalate quickly.
Yes, things escalate quickly. Recently, during a WrestleMania weekend, Mark Calloway, known as The Undertaker, tried to do something nice for a bodyguard's son. Finds out that the bodyguard's son is about 6-7 years old, huge wrestling fan. Comes over after his event and says, he had a pop-up in one of the matches and says, hey, can I talk to your son? And security guard's like, no, we don't really need to. He goes, no, I'm happy to do it. Let me do it. So dials him up, gets his little son on the phone, and they start going back and forth, and Undertaker starts ribbing him. And things escalate rather quickly to where the 7-year-old yells through the phone, I will shoot you in the face. Yes. And Undertaker promptly responded, oh, yeah, I'll shoot you in the face. And during the story, the Undertaker is telling this in the podcast, and he goes, I'm laughing. He goes, I'm on the phone with a 7-year-old, and we're challenging each other who's going to shoot each other in the face. And he said he keeps going. The kid gets really mad. He goes, oh, yeah, I bet you're a Democrat. And Undertaker just breaks out laughing. And in the meantime, Dad is next to him. He can hear the conversation, has his hands in his head, and going, I'm so sorry. But Undertaker said that was the best conversation he has had with a fan in a long time. He said, there's no worries. He goes, that was fantastic, so much better than his normal phone call.
The ultimate insult.
Yes, I love it. He said he's a Democrat. Oh, it's fantastic. Alrighty, so second choice this morning, sir. Someone should tell them it's fake. Reminder of who's in charge, or testing a parent's love.
Let's test the parent's love.
Yeah, testing a parent's love. That is an idea for NBC and the Olympics that are going to be held in Paris.
Let's go. It's fake.
Now, what they're going to do is they've got some ideas. They're going to have possibly some celebrity hosts and commentators like the Peyton Manning thing and Eli Manning during from a Monday Night Football. They're thinking of that, but they're also thinking of putting the parents on center stage. What they're talking about is putting a heart monitor on the Olympic parents and split screening it to watch the parents' heartbeat and their reaction during their child's largest failure on the planet.
Have you seen some of those videos of the parents where they're following?
They're following doing it. Yeah.
I mean,
so
look,
that's the testing on it has been really good so
you
far.
have been so invested in your kids' lives.
Yeah.
I understand it.
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, we could get that. It's right in the testing phase right now, but so far audiences really like it. So you could see that. Okay, Blake Olson, newsroom. Final choice this morning, sir. Someone should tell them it's fake. A reminder of who's in charge.
Someone should tell them it's fake.
Someone should tell them it's fake. Very rarely do we do 2 professional wrestling stories, but this is a special moment. The Oklahoma State Athletic Commission has a recent quarterly meeting, and information has surfaced that they are mad at All Elite Wrestling because they have violated some of the bans and some of the rules inside of Oklahoma. They don't want AEW to come back because they have supposedly violated their ban on intergender wrestling. Those jerks.
What?
Yeah, now AEW has a transgendered wrestler. A person was born biologically as a male, performs as a female, and was in a match recently in Oklahoma. They're saying that violates the ban on intergender wrestling. Guys, they weren't wrestling.
Doesn't?
It's fake. They're not wrestling. It's fake. It's totally pretend. They're pretend fighting.
No.
Yes, I'm sorry to bring that to you, Blake. I'll let you compose yourself before the top of the hour. That's it. And you choose the news. Back to you, sir.
All right, coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, Dr. Tom Copeland. He's got an article in the Gazette that's on fire. You're not going to miss it. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
7 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver. You've tuned into an already very excited Kevin Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great day in America's greatest city. And we're going to be gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab your coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Appreciate all the text messages after the first hour and the phone calls. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Interesting op-ed we're going to get to in just a second. Yeah. This was in the Gazette. Give till it hurts. The problem with boundless compassion. That's right, Colorado. You care too much. This guy's going to tell us why that's a problem with all your caring out there. We're going to get to Dr. Tom Copeland in just a second, Director of Research at the Centennial Institute. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning, Jeff and Billy. 49 and clear in Denver, expecting highs in the upper 70s. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
There's not a Democrat in there. These are people. Look at that building. Look what we can do. We built a lot of great buildings in the city with these people, and they've given me great support. They're really amazing. Well, we have a big case today. This judge isn't allowing me to go. We have a big case today in the Supreme Court on presidential immunity. A president has to have immunity. If you don't have immunity, you just have a ceremonial president.
And as Jeff and Bill have been talking about President Trump in Manhattan this morning with construction workers and New Yorkers talking about the huge immunity case going on. He will not be at that one, but Trump returns to court in New York this morning. Nobody knows what's going on in that trial. Most Americans know it's all about Trump being derailed from his campaign. President Biden on the campaign trail, reading everything that is on the teleprompter, including the word pause that he's not supposed to read.
Imagine what we could do next. 4 more years. Pause. 4 more years. 4 more years.
Maybe
I want to know in what speech you would say that.
Yeah, I know.
Like, when would you ever say the word pause?
Right,
I guess we all need to pause a moment and reflect on maybe that.
Thank God. And thank God. Let's pause a moment and thank God that I'm alive. His campaign will continue with TikTok, though, despite him banning that. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I had somebody yesterday say to me, 341 million people in this country, and we found ourselves with these two.
Yeah, it says a lot about us.
Congratulations.
Well, you could say, see, I hear that all the time, and that's kind of, to me, that's like, you know what? I don't care about politicians. I vote for the person. So, I've heard that also, and you end up with those two. But if it was not, in my opinion, if it was not for one of those, we'd be deep doo-doo right now. We're already in deep doo-doo. So I support the guy. Hey, pro-Hamas crazies on campuses across the country and universities are heavily funded by international funds coming across, like Qatar, who supports Hamas. And these college students have been indoctrinated to hate Jews. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson at Columbia on Wednesday, and Anthony D'Esposito, a representative from New York.
If you are a protester on this campus and you are proud that you've been endorsed by Hamas, you are part of the problem. When you cheer on the fact that you enjoy Hamas and Hezbollah, you are yourself part of the problem. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to join with you here today in calling for the immediate resignation of the President of Columbia. She has failed her duty. She is not keeping students safe. And we see on this campus the hate-filled speech that is carrying through this country.
Man, going into the darkness Wednesday. Good for them. A verdict is possible today in the trial of a former Clear Creek County deputy who shot and killed Christian Glass 2 years ago. The 22-year-old called 911 to say his car got stuck on a rock. When law enforcement arrived, he refused to get out. They used a taser gun, beanbag rounds, and then Andrew Buin opened fire. The Glass family says he was having a mental breakdown. Engineers found more cracks in the bridge over Blue Mesa Reservoir, which provides direct access from Gunnison County to Montrose County, which is creating a 6 to 7 hour delay on Highway 50 if you're headed there. There is no timeline for repairs or reopening. Once again, the FBI warning drivers of a scam. If you're driving on E470 on the toll road, don't click on any links or provide any personal information if you receive text messages about what you owe. E470 never asks for payment through a text. It's 45 in Arvada, 47 in Aurora, 49 in Denver. Nuggets back at it tonight. Game 3 against the Lakers in the playoffs. They lead 2-0. NFL draft kicking off tonight. Broncos with the 12th overall pick. Rockies getaway day today. This afternoon against the Padres, and the Avalanche take on the Winnipeg Jets. Tomorrow, back at home for their playoff series, tied at 1 against the Winnipeg Jets. All right, no gag orders with Jeff and Billy.
Anything. All right, I won't say anything about this being a kangaroo court. Corrupt. You're an awful judge. She's a whore, and it's cold in here.
Steven Crowder's killing it, man. Once again, Jeff and Bill. It's Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
KNUS 5-day forecast calls for active spring weather conditions through the 5-day stretch. Showers and thunderstorms, strong to maybe a few isolated severe storms further to our east this Thursday afternoon. High temps still unseasonably warm today, mid to upper 70s, near 50 tonight. Trending cooler Friday, 60s, 50s this weekend. On and off periods of light to some moderate rain, a little thunderstorm activity as well Friday right through Sunday. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer on 710 KNUS.
All right, you Coloradans, you're too compassionate. The problem with boundless compassion. This was published in the Denver Gazette over the weekend, and it was good. I got a lot of this. When I get people that send me these articles, I go, okay, we got to talk about it on the air. So know that you can always text us this stuff, especially if you want to talk. Because it gives us good insight into what people are talking about. Dr. Tom Copeland is the director of research at the Centennial Institute of Colorado Christian University. He wrote the article saying we're too compassionate. We need to balance it out a little bit. Dr. Copeland, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure to join you.
So give us your argument here that we're about this problem with boundless compassion.
Well, I think when you say we have too much compassion, what I'm talking about is that the left has boundless compassion. There's no logical limit to compassion. Everyone needs more of everything. We could all use more free food and free housing and all kinds of things. So, like the number of people who are covered by compassion and the amount is boundless. Well, look at things like relieving college student debt. Of course, they need some compassion if they've got lifelong debt, but when it costs us hundreds of billions or even trillions of dollars to forgive it, that's going too far.
How does it balance out with things like justice, prudence, those types of things?
Well, I think that's exactly it. Justice, at least in one of the older definitions, is everyone gets what they deserve. Now, we think about that in terms of criminal justice, do the crime, pay the time. But it's also true that people are made in the image of God, and they deserve to be treated and respected with dignity. They do need access, at least opportunity, to provide for themselves. So justice implies that, also that doing too much compassion to one person means showing less compassion to another. And that's certainly the case. I think I was prompted on this by hearing the Denver mayor, Mike Johnston, cutting $46 million in city services to Denverites to pay for illegal immigrants. The cost of limitless compassion is that you're less compassionate towards others.
Yeah. So how do you balance that out? And do you think that people like understand that? Right. So I've wondered about the residents of Denver. I don't live in Denver. I don't have to pay these taxes. I'm not relying upon Denver services. And then when you see the mayor get up there and go, we're going to cut $8 million from the police budget so that we can fund this massive. And this is, I mean, talking with Dr. Tom Copeland, this is what struck me about that press conference that Mike Johnston did probably a week and a half ago now on this illegal immigrant program, was how big it is, right? 6 months of apartment funding for you to live in an apartment complex, a debit card with money on it for you to buy groceries and personal items, legal counsel, 20 hours of legal counsel, and then workforce training. And you go, yeah, well, okay, we're compassionate. And I remember I got a bunch of responses on my Twitter feed about this. Aren't we Christians? Shouldn't we welcome the stranger? Look at this great program that's going to serve people. And then you go, yeah, but we just cut $46 million from other programs, including $8 million from police. At a certain point, your compassion runs up against math, right? Dr. Copeland?
Yeah, absolutely. The crushing tax burden that we have as Americans, as Coloradans, is what funds all of this boundless compassion. So yeah, there have to be prudent limits on just how much we can afford to do. And what you said is case in point for my argument that every renter in the state would be happy to have 6 months of free rent. And lots of people who are struggling to pay their grocery bills because inflation is so bad would love to have a debit card with hundreds or thousands of dollars on it. So there's no limit to what one can do, especially if one has unlimited funding. And I think that part of the challenge is the state legislature thinks that it's their money and not taxpayers' money.
No, that's a really important point, because we're at a point now where we just, in many ways, math used to be kind of this barrier. You can't do everything all at once. I'm sorry, we just don't have enough money. And now we're just kind of printing money and debt. We'll go into it, pass it on to the next generation. I mean, what are we, $37 trillion in debt at this point? Dr. Tom Copeland, help people understand the rights issue and the conflation of rights, because I think that's a big component of this, where healthcare is now a right. Access to college is now a right. A personalized laptop is a right. I mean, everything's kind of a right in our culture these days, but that's not necessarily what rights are.
Well, and you're right about that. It's an interesting contrast between the U.S. Constitution and our basic rights that are there, and many other state or country constitutions. Others, like France and elsewhere, have extremely detailed lists of rights, including things just like that, rights to free healthcare and free education and so forth. So we're, like the Brits, we're among the few who actually think that, we have essential rights. And then, it's up to the prudence of voters and taxpayers to decide what else they can afford to do. I think the problem with thinking that everyone has a right to, pretty much whatever they claim, with us, a right to have their college debt removed, a right to have free transgender surgery, a right to abortion. The challenge is that every right has a corresponding responsibility, and we don't see the responsibility conversation at all. I have a right to free speech, which is great, but I have a responsibility to ensure that others have free speech rights. Now, this whole thing with college campuses is a related issue, but we just don't talk about responsibilities and duties. And that's what's lost, I think, in some of the conversation about illegal immigration, is that if people want to come to this country and, promote their economic well-being, pursue their dreams, they need to do it legally. That's, following the responsibility of being a citizen or someone who's on an appropriate green card or visa. There is a proper way to do it that shows responsibility. That's just very different from, I have a right to this free housing and free services from Denver.
All right, Bill, I'm going to use a Catholic language term here.
Yes.
When we're talking about compassion, which is a Catholic term, when we're talking about compassion, Dr. Tom Copeland, Director of Research at Centennial Institute, we're not just talking about the notion that it's the government's role to provide compassion. And so Catholic social teaching has come up with this idea called subsidiarity, which is the way God created the world. There are different levels of government. And what do we mean by that? When we think government, we think just those that are elected, those that run our cities, our counties. But government means governing. So you're governing everything from your family, right? So that's a form of government, to your neighborhoods, your communities, your schools, that type of thing. And in Catholic social teaching, it is the government's big government that we think of does serve a role, but then there's also the role of charities, right? So when you're talking about boundless compassion, you're not necessarily restricting the idea that or criticizing the idea of giving through charities and those types of things. It's the government stepping in, the big government stepping in and usurping those smaller governments to provide care and services. Is that right?
Right. You're correct that there's a role for government, and certainly probably a much larger role for organizations like the church. And this Catholic idea of subsidiarity effectively means that the best compassion happens at the most local level possible. So maybe it's the area around a particular church or a Catholic parish or whatever. They're the ones who are going to know better what the real needs are of people in their community. I think it's also true that you mentioned earlier the question of, well, doesn't sound very Christian to not have compassion. Well, I mean, Christ commands his followers to have compassion in many cases. And of course, he had compassion on everyone who he met. He often healed their physical illnesses as well as their spiritual illnesses. But, government's primary job is not compassion. And so I think we have to recognize that distinction between the role of civil society, the church, and so on, in exercising compassion that's smart, focused on the individual, versus big government, quote, compassion, which is simply throwing dollars at problems.
I mean, Tom, the entire state capitol, dominated by Democrats, just stopped to look at you when you said the government's primary role is not compassion. What do you explain a little bit more on that? Because I think down there, they are primarily motivated. They would say from their perspective that we are incredibly compassionate. We're using the resources that the state has to solve problems. Our primary job is compassion. What say you?
Well, no, I think their primary purpose really is the safe maintenance of society. I mean, that's what governing is. It's putting limits on things. The governor on your engine, puts a limit on it, but it doesn't run the entire system. So the legislature needs to be focusing more on just guaranteeing our basic rights, creating more opportunities, whether it's through less regulation, lower taxes, more freedom for people to innovate, to try new methods of oil and gas extraction. They need to be creating opportunities within some bounds. They don't want to support, let's say fringe technologies or something, but their job is to maintain society, keep public safety in mind. That's their primary purpose, is not compassion.
Interesting. Now, Dr. Tom Copeland, Director of Research for Centennial Institute, joining Jeff and Bill. I want to go back to a phrase and a statement you'd made a little bit earlier about the role of government and church in our society. Can you expand on that? What do you think the similarities are in the role of government and the church in our society, and the differences that should be delineated between government and the church in our society?
Mm-hmm. Well, the church is limited because it doesn't have political authority. So it can't, the church is not running speed traps or chasing down bank robbers, or making sure that the water and electrical utilities are safe and so on. They don't have those kinds of political responsibilities. They are much more about that sense of compassion or charity. Charity is given out of the abundance that you have. So it's all the way back to Adam Smith and his initial arguments about capitalism. was that you can't have charity if people are being forced to give it away, which is, I think, the problem with higher taxes. But charity is what you give out of your abundance. That's the principle of tithing in the Christian faith. So churches certainly, have this obligation to God to provide for their neighbors and so on. But again, it has to be prudent. God doesn't command, Christ doesn't tell his followers in the New Testament to sell everything that they have. He talks about it in a parable, but he's not requiring, socialism among people. So I think that's a key factor with the church, is that they do have an obligation. Individual believers have an obligation to be compassionate. But again, government, I think, kind of like the subsidiarity argument, should be as local as possible. Now, local governments have all kinds of internal political matters. You go to a city council meeting or county commissioners, and you'll find all kinds of politicking happening there. But they know best what their community needs, far better than what the national government does.
That's a great answer, and I totally agree with you on the separation there. But now let's kind of lean a little bit further into the argument from the compassionate people. Again, Democrat compassionate. Should our government start acting more like the church? Should the government take on more of those roles, and should we see it taking on more of the trappings of the church, etc.? What's your feeling on that one? That then we'd be more compassionate, we'd be able to take care of people if only the government that we have functioning in Colorado acted more like the churches we have in Colorado. What do you think to that?
Well, I think the government over maybe centuries now has taken over some of those functions that the church used to perform, whether it's providing clothing to those who are in need and sort of the wraparound kinds of things for people who are homeless, getting people into churches off the street, into rehab programs and so on. So I think the government has already overstepped into what the church has traditionally done to people in their neighborhoods. I would say, in terms of, should they imitate what the church does? Again, I think the more they focus on local government, state, especially local government, the better off we are. And that's one of the innovations in the last 50 years or so. And Reagan was particularly big on these block grants to the states, saying, look, we're in Washington, we don't know what you really need out there. So let's give the state a block grant, and then you turn around and give it to lower levels.
Yeah.
So I think there are ways for the government to be more effective, certainly than they are right now.
This is great. And this is the fun part, is I really appreciate the answers, Dr. Tom Copeland, Director of Research for the Centennial Institute, here on Jeff and Bill, because while I disagree on some of the finer points inside of your piece, I absolutely agree with you about your fundamental premise that the government can't function as a charity or always have the answer being, well, aren't we being compassionate? That's not the government's role. There are very tough choices that the government has to make. And some of those is at times telling people no. And you're right. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I've seen this before. I forget which presidential race it was, but they were talking about the total amount of giving that the candidates had done. And one of the Democrat candidates had said, well, I do give to the poor. I pay my taxes. Dr. Copeland, talk to me about what happens when the government becomes the entity that serves and provides compassion, how that takes the responsibility off of people to serve the poor, to serve those that are in need, because we can just let the government do it.
Well, I think it's almost self-evident what you're suggesting, Jeff, is that when the government steps in, right, there's no need for the church, community organizations, others to really step in. But you can assume that, well, I've just encountered a homeless person who actually seems like they're interested in finding help. It is a burden on my time and my resources to try to help them. But if I know that, well, if I just point them to the state of Colorado government website to find resources, they'll get taken care of. So I think in particular alleviates the concern for others that citizens ought to have. That this goes way back, and probably 100 years ago or more. But you had sort of traveling bums, right? These were sort of the homeless of the 19th century. every time they went to a town, there were people who would take them in and provide for them, but also maintain their dignity. I think that's one of the challenges when government steps in to perform all its compassion, is that they take away people's dignity by making them totally dependent on these government services, whether it's the free housing or free resources or safe spaces to inject drugs or whatever it is. When you make someone dependent, you're denying them the opportunity to really flourish, to find that they can not entirely pick themselves up by their bootstraps. Sometimes people do need, a hand up. But I think that's an enormous problem with government just being the provider of all compassion.
To your point, a city councilwoman recently was shocked and angry and frustrated that these faith-based poverty alleviation programs would require people, now hold on to your hats, to work, to clean up their place, to not steal inside the shelter, to live by some sort of standards, that you couldn't come into the shelter drunk. Yeah. She was very angry. And that, to your point, Dr. Copeland, you end up just handing people stuff. They become dependent on it, and you remove that dignity. And you see it in our own elected officials here.
And to dovetail off of that, the idea of being a parent, Jeff, you know this as well as I do, that you have to set standards.
Yep.
The children will meet the standards you set. And if you don't set standards, even for adults, they won't meet the standards. Everybody has standards we're supposed to meet every day. Standards on the road getting to the office, standards in the office when we're there, standards in behavior, standards in how we drive going home, standards on how we treat our friends and family. We all deal with that every day. And you violate those standards, you can break the law. So the idea that we don't hold the people that we are helping to standards as well is dumb. You're asking for failure. You're asking for them to fail. You're setting them up to continue the cycle. You're not trying to help.
Joining us is Dr. Tom Copeland, Director of Research at the Centennial Institute, has an article in the Gazette titled "Give Till It Hurts." You can read that article at his website, Dr. as in Dr. TomCopeland.com, drtomcopeland.com. A good insight into how we can best manage our community, serve our people, and pursue not just compassion, but justice and prudence as well. Dr. Copeland, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Well, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Listen, your home is a significant asset, and choosing the right team to help you sell it can be the difference in thousands of dollars in your pocket. I highly recommend Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team, the realtors I trust. Empower Home team provides exceptional service, invaluable advice, and employs unique systems to maximize the money you can get for your home. Getting an offer above your home's asking price is great, but you're leaving money on the table by not working with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Gay and her experts get their clients an average of $30,000 more. Could you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Their exclusive database is filled with pre-screened buyers ready to make a purchase. Take the stress and hassle out of selling your home while getting the best price. Here's an unbeatable offer from Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. They will sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of your asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Reach out to my friends and realtors today. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team. Give them a call at 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD, or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. She was in studio yesterday.
Yes, she was.
Absolutely delightful.
Yeah. And very knowledgeable, very intelligent, can talk about where the opportunities are in the market, gave us a lot of insight, and talked about how the largest transfer of wealth is probably going to happen after the baby boomers pass away, and how you can set your kids up for success now. It's kind of cool.
Dude, my wife and I were talking about that. It is, it's what I call the Prince Charles incident in our culture. Our world has never seen this.
We marry our cousins?
Right.
Sorry. That's all right. Had to throw that in there.
So the Kennedys, I think.
Yeah, I would agree.
Our world has never seen this.
Yeah.
Where you're not getting your inheritance, you're not getting what your parents have built until you're like in your 70s.
Yeah. But we shouldn't be surprised. This is the system that we set up. We made these changes. We changed the structure fundamentally so that the middle and lower incomes couldn't amass the wealth. We thought it was a bad idea. So we changed it.
When did we
Ta-da!
do that? What was that?
Getting rid of pensions, retirement accounts, crushing unions, things like that. And all I'm saying is talk to the boomers that have had what you assume to be a middle income job. They didn't have a phenomenal 6-figure income at any point in time, but they were able to put away enough money so they can comfortably retire. That is not happening with Gen X and below.
And you think that's unions?
No, I'm saying that's part of it. I'm saying there's a large branch, but part of the thing functionally that is really, really hurt the middle class as far as planning for retirement are things like the pension and the retirement accounts, because how those have been sidelined and how we deal with those now versus the original pension accounts. Go to certain, okay, here's a great modern example. State Farm Insurance. It's a mutual company, but it has a phenomenal pension program, and they can still manage it. They're still able to do it. So the idea that a pension program is crushing and pulls down a company, I disagree with. And you go and you can work as a claims adjuster for State Farm. You can put in 25, 30 years. You'll be able to retire and you'll be able to do it comfortably. On another industry and another job, you go and you work at King Soopers, union job. You'll probably be able to retire. I know a couple of people that have been able to do that. Work in an industry that doesn't have those type of benefits, that type of investment in a retirement plan, and you got an issue. But it also can get out of control, just like Para with the Colorado State.
I think it's more in going back to the idea of wealth transfer down. I do think it's our tax structure where people are going, well, if I give a certain amount to my kids, I got to pay taxes on that. So I'm going to put it into real estate, and it gets too complicated. It's too hard. But the weird
part about that, though, is that we had more wealth transfer when we had higher taxation on the higher end. That's the weird part about it. That's what the government. That's what we had. And so that's the weird part about that. I mean, I understand, but I am not convinced that. And again, I'm not saying that we need to take all the money away from rich people, but I am just unconvinced that we need to rely on their benevolence to share everything. That we have to say, well, you've got all the monies now. Hopefully, we'll give some of it to everybody else, including your family. Not necessarily.
So America is the most generous nation in the world, and gives at a much higher rate and gives more to charity than any other nation in the world. And so going back to Tom Copeland's argument, I do think that's where you get better work.
The giving is also, though, inverse, which is very odd. That the higher income level, based on a proportion of income, the percentage goes down. The people based on it. And so the weird part is the people on the lower incomes, the middle and the poor, give a higher percentage of their income. So the idea, and again, that comes back to my original
10% to everybody.
Well, the issue to
flat tithe.
I come back to the idea that we can't necessarily rest on the benevolence of the ultra rich, because when given the chance, they're not. That's what we see right now. So depending upon that, they've already proven us. That's what the research shows.
I've seen some of the big. I've worked for nonprofits. The biggest gifts, it may not be a large percentage or an equal percentage, but when it comes to pure amount, it typically comes from those folks.
Oh, absolutely it does.
All right.
But the percentage is totally different.
Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the 710KNUS app. We'll get your calls and texts, and they are a lot of text messages here. Feel free to give us a call and add to the conversation. 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. Arizona's House of Representatives has voted to repeal a near-total abortion ban, which the state's Supreme Court reinstated earlier this month. The ban, which has yet to go into effect, has become a major political issue in the key swing state. Ira Spitzer reports.
After blocking earlier attempts, 3 Arizona Republicans joined Democrats in voting to repeal the 160-year-old law banning almost all abortions that the state's Supreme Court reinstated earlier this month. If the bill clears the Arizona Senate and is signed by the governor, as seems likely, abortions in the state will continue to be legal through the first 15 weeks of pregnancy.
Dozens more college students have been arrested at pro-Palestinian protests on campuses across the country. 93 people were arrested at the University of Southern California on Wednesday and at least 34 at the University of Texas at Austin. The demonstrating students have made demands that their universities divest from Israeli assets and call on the U.S. government to pressure Israel to scale down the bombardment of Gaza, where tens of thousands of civilians have been killed. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Blake, what are you working on, my friend?
Oh, man, there's a bunch of stuff going on. Former President Trump holding court before court this morning in front of Teamsters and construction workers and New Yorkers. They were chanting USA, USA, and 4 more years, or not 4 more years, but Trump, Trump, Trump. Let's see. Also, Trump said he wants to be in D.C. for the big case. Of course, the immunity case. We'll talk about that. And a Colorado bill talking about long lunch lines at school. They're going to try to fix that.
This is because we provide free food to everybody. That's why the line is long. So what?
Yeah,
I am interested to hear what the plan is. Are they going to have 4 schools to stagger lunches? I don't know. That seems like
good question. I know it's not because of the quality of food. It's not like our old lunches, man. When I was in elementary school in the 70s and 70s, man, we had those grandmothers working in the kitchen, and they used the same bread. It was like homemade, man. They made it for the pizza, the cheese sandwiches, the runses, and we called them kraut burgers or whatever. Did you have that, Billy?
No, I didn't. I didn't have any of that. We had school just sucked. Yeah, this is in fact the theory that I've got, and what I would love to do, and we'd never get the Democrats to agree to this, is I would subcontract every school lunchroom with a local restaurant or catering company. I would make them bid, and I would make them compete for it. And again, it is a fat government contract. If the kids like what you're eating, the government money continues to come in and bring some efficiency and some nutrition to the process as well. Because I've seen some of the back end of what goes on in ordering the school lunches and the prep and everything else, and it's a nightmare. And you really need a powerful principal or even a superintendent to really change the lunch system. And in part, I feel that the lunchroom is managed so poorly for the same reason that the DMV is managed so poorly. They don't care. You have to be there whether you want to or not. And whether or not they're efficient and feed you good food and get you through the line in time to get to your next class, they don't care. That doesn't impact their job at all.
Help the restaurant industry also.
Exactly. Yeah, give them a little bit of boost.
Great idea.
And if the restaurant can't get everybody through the line, now you've got a reason to go and look for somebody else. That's what you need to do. Again, choice and competition.
So in universities, it's contracts with particular caterers.
Exactly.
And if you don't like them, you switch them.
Exactly.
I have seen it in a few high schools. I mean, those little kiosks.
Yeah.
Whatever. But I totally agree, man. Just go
for
all out, man. Heck, let's get everyone as fat as possible.
give them at least do it. You could do a food court. I mean, for God's sakes,
no doubt, a food court
at all the malls. Those Sbarro locations are closing down. There's no other Sbarro other than in a food court. So you've got to save the Sbarro. That's it. It's
there you go.
Blake. Yes, it's Jeff, Bill, Blake. Today we're going to start a new campaign. Save the Sbarro.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
T-shirts and
call Mike Boyle.
Exactly, man. That's exactly it.
Mike Boyle will get it going.
Yes, he will.
Hey there, fellow homeowners. Jeff Hunt here. And today I've got something truly special to share with you. Thanks, Blake, by the way. Appreciate that. Ever dreamt of effortlessly transforming your home into a haven of organization and efficiency? Well, listen up, because I've got just the solution for you. Roll them out shelves. Let me paint you a picture of my recent experience with Joyce and Brent Tolliver from Roll them out shelves. It was like having family walk through my door. Seriously, these folks are just so professional. They're meticulous, caring, and very personable. Working with them was like having my mom and brother right there beside me. Kind, considerate, always making sure everything was just right. And let me tell you this, their attention to detail is unparalleled. They measured every nook and cranny and asked all the right questions and ensured every shelf and drawer was tailor-made to fit my needs perfectly. The result? Say goodbye to chaos and hello to beautifully organized shelves showcasing all my essentials. But here's the best part. You don't have to break the bank for this type of transformation. For less than $1,000, you can embark on your very own home makeover journey with Roll 'em Out shelves. And let me assure you, these shelves are built to last, crafted from sturdy Baltic birch, built right here in Colorado and backed by a lifetime guarantee. You can trust that your space will stay organized for years to come. So what are you waiting for? Give Joyce and Brent, the dynamic duo behind Roll 'em Out Shelves, a call today at 303-475-9601 or visit their website at rollemoutshelves.com for your free in-home estimate. Trust me, folks, the process is a breeze and you'll never look back. Be sure to tell them Jeff sent you. Here's Benjamin Netanyahu on the campus protests taking place here in America.
What's happening on America's college campuses is horrific. Anti-Semitic mobs have taken over leading universities. They call for the annihilation of Israel, They attack Jewish students. They attack Jewish faculty. This is reminiscent of what happened in German universities in the 1930s. It's unconscionable. It has to be stopped. It has to be condemned, and condemned unequivocally. But that's not what happened. The response of several university presidents was shameful. Now, fortunately, state, local, federal officials, many of them have responded differently, but there has to be more. More has to be done. It has to be done not only because they attack Israel, that's bad enough. Not only because they want to kill Jews wherever they are, that's bad enough. It's also, when you listen to them, it's also because they say not only death to Israel, death to the Jews, but death to America. And this tells us that there's an anti-Semitic surge here that has terrible consequences. We see this exponential rise of anti-Semitism throughout America and throughout Western societies as Israel tries to defend itself against genocidal terrorists who hide behind civilians. Yet it is Israel that is falsely accused of genocide, Israel that is falsely accused of starvation and all sundry war crimes. It's all one big libel, but that's not new. We've seen in history that anti-Semitic attacks were always preceded by vilification and slander, lies that were cast against the Jewish people that are unbelievable, yet people believed them. And what is important now is for all of us who are interested and cherish our values and our civilization, to stand up together and to say enough is enough. We have to stop anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine. It always precedes larger conflagrations that engulf the entire world. So I ask all of you, Jews and non-Jews alike, who are concerned with our common future and our common values, to do one thing: stand up, speak up, be counted. Stop anti-Semitism now.
It's the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, remarks on the college protest. Hamas coming out in support of the college protests. We are at a point right now in this country where we are having to send in armed guards to protect Jews on college campuses. Like, this is somehow like what we had to do with protecting blacks in the 40s and 50s on college campuses. This is shocking. This is shameful. I saw one good text message here, Bill, that I think would maybe help end all this.
Yeah, what?
No college tuition debt forgiveness if you get arrested for these types of anti-Semitic protests.
Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah, I could go.
You want to do this? You want to? And this isn't. We're so far past free speech right now.
Yeah,
we're into calling for the death of people.
Yeah,
right.
And again, I like
you
the idea
engage in that stuff. Yeah. You get arrested. You're throwing bottles. You're preventing Jews from going to classes. All right, no debt forgiveness for you.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. And for me, the line they cross would be getting arrested, because you're doing something you're not supposed to. Even if that means you are having a, whatever it is, a sit-in, you're having you're blocking the street, and the cops say you need to move, you're going to get arrested. Yes, move. Yes, move at that point. If you want to have the student debt forgiven, yes, make that choice. But if you sit there on the ground and stay, or continue to block the street or throw bottles, you've made the choice, and deal with the consequences, which would be no student debt forgiveness. Absolutely, 110%. I like that.
What do you think's happening on these college campuses? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us at the 710 KNUS text app. How did we get to this point? Are you ashamed? I'm ashamed. This is not what our country should be. This is like Netanyahu it's like 1930s Germany. It's like 1950s America, where you're having to have armed guards protect students.
Yeah.
Students.
Here's the thing. The thing for me is that it's the concentration of it on the college campuses, I think, gives me a little more happiness about it than you. And not the happiness is the wrong word. I'm not necessarily as concerned about it bleeding over into the larger segments of society, because we're not having it in the Walmart parking lot. We're not having it out in front of the Capitol building. We're not having it. So that's the thing, is I see it concentrated into these pockets of what I am going to call as young, inexperienced minds. They have a very small window and perception about what the world is and their sense of history. And their sense of history right now, based on their life experience, because now remember, okay, Jeff, you, me, listener, we're all going to jump into the Wayback Machine and travel back to when we were 18 to 21 years old. Remember that time? It was wonderful. We had so much hair, all this energy, nothing hurt. We had tight skin, great metabolisms. It was wonderful. But what we didn't have was understanding of history and a perspective. However, at that time, we knew more than we had ever known in our lives. We were full of
Brilliant.
this. Yes, we were full of this idea that, oh my gosh, I can't possibly absorb any more information. I am at college. I am at the institution of higher learning. Bask in my understanding of the universe. That's what you feel like when you're that college student. You feel like that nobody could possibly know this because I'm in these conversations with professors and people come on campus and tell us things, and that's it. They have a very limited perspective and they have a very short window of history. They don't understand what has been going on for decades. And the other thing I come back to is let's go back to September 11th and let's go back to the idea of the invasion in Iraq. And if you were saying, no, we can't invade Iraq, and I don't know, Al-Qaeda comes up and says, yes, don't invade Iraq, probably should rethink your message. If the terrorists are agreeing with you, you might be cheering for the wrong side. Just like when you show up at Mile High Stadium and you're wearing one of those stupid Raiders jerseys. Again, you're cheering for the wrong side.
On that.
I make fun.
Did you
I'm poking
see
fun
that?
at the
Did you
friends.
see the video of that girl being interviewed and she's like, why am I here? And she turns to her friend. She's like, why are we here?
No. Oh, the protest? Really?
Yeah.
Not surprised.
And it was just like, well, we heard that this was, kind of justice oriented. I
Yeah.
do think that there's probably an element that's funding this, pushing it.
Yeah, I would
Once
think
this
so.
typed into Discord. So I don't think it's just college students, but all right, we've got to get up against a break here. 8 o'clock hour. You're not going to want to miss this interview, especially with Bill and William.
This will be interesting.
This will be fascinating. William Wolfe's going to join us on what they're trying to do to clear out the wokeness in the Southern Baptist Church. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right. The 8 o'clock hour, we're going to be joined by William Wolfe. He's the founder and executive director of the Center for Baptist Leadership. All right. Is it going to be a church sermon message? No. What they are trying to do, they're political activists, and they're trying to clear out the wokeness that's happening in the Southern Baptist Convention. And he's a very proud, noted Christian nationalist. Ooh.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So he's happy to embrace that term. And we'll get into his thoughts on what they're trying to do within the church. And Bill is, I'm sure, going to have some questions.
Yeah, I get some questions. I'm not saying necessarily disagree with him. I'm just curious about where he's, where he's sitting, where he's standing, and what he means by this. So it's not necessarily objectionable, but we'll see.
That's what we do on this show.
We will see.
You can follow him on Twitter at William_E_Wolfe. He's got about 40,000 followers there. So one of the interesting thought leaders, he was a Trump appointee in the Department of Defense. It's going to go some interesting places, so you're not going to want to miss it. We'll continue with your calls and text as well. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
8 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, center, and sometimes a little crazy. It's going to be a great day in America's greatest city, and we're gearing up for a whole another hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear, including some Raiders fans that like to text into the show. Grab your coffee. We'll dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Blake, I don't know if you're seeing this breaking news. Harvey Weinstein's court case his conviction was overturned.
Wow. I just saw that.
Yeah.
Pop up
Finding the judge at the landmark Me Too trial prejudiced the mogul with egregious improper rulings, including a decision to let women testify about allegations that weren't part of the case. They're going back to trial.
Going back to court.
There you go. Here comes
Okay,
the
I
judge.
appreciate you
Here
telling
comes
me
the
that.
judge.
Yeah, here comes the judge. Here comes the judge. Don't doubt. Man, what is next? You just never know. 52 and sunny in Denver. Should feel temperatures in the upper 70s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, former President Trump among construction workers and New Yorkers today, this morning, before he headed back to see the judge. Here comes the judge. Here comes the judge in his kangaroo court case. Presidential immunity is at the top of Trump's mind today, as part of his legal team is in D.C. To hear from the U.S. Supreme Court.
There's not a Democrat in there. These are people. Look at that building. Look what we can do. We built a lot of great buildings in the city with these people, and they've given me great support. They're really amazing. Well, we have a big case today. This judge isn't allowing me to go. We have a big case today in the Supreme Court on presidential immunity. A president has to have immunity. If you don't have immunity, you just have a ceremonial president.
While Trump fights for his political life, President Biden is actually alive and campaigning in front of small groups. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says Hamas supporters at the University of Texas are anti-Semitic and belong in jail. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson at Columbia in New York on Wednesday.
And today I'm here to proclaim to all those who gnash their teeth and demand to wipe the state of Israel off the map and attack our innocent Jewish students, this simple truth: neither Israel nor these Jewish students on this campus will ever stand alone. Today, Hamas issued an endorsement statement of the protesters on this campus. They called them the future leaders of America. It is detestable.
Funny how the left always talks about phobe this, phobe that, phobia, Islamophobe, homophobe, compassion. Not now. And right. And that's what Dr. Tom Copeland from the Centennial Institute writes about today. Give till it hurts, oftentimes hurts others. On with Jeff and Bill this morning.
Doing too much compassion to one person means showing less compassion to another. And that's certainly the case. I was prompted on this by hearing the Denver mayor, Mike Johnston, cutting $46 million in city services to Denverites to pay for illegal immigrants. The cost of limitless compassion is that you're less compassionate towards others.
And speaking of compassion, there's a Colorado bill evaluating school lunch lines and creating more time for kids to eat. Evidently, lines are longer because there are more kids receiving free lunches.
It sounds like what someone running for student body president would say. We're going to put soda in the drinking fountains and longer lunch hours for everybody.
Pizza for lunch every day and ice cream.
Oh man,
so true.
Welcome to Colorado.
Welcome to Colorado.
I was talking to a guy who ran against somebody in college, and he would only campaign. This guy became class president. He would only campaign between midnight and 4 a.m. And then his friends would carry him around on a bed. During those hours, they'd provide free beer. And then he said, if you make me president, I will immediately withdraw and appoint my vice president to take over, which was his cat. and he won. He won.
He won?
And then,
Wow.
long
What
lunch.
a surprise.
That was at Notre Dame, by the way.
That's at Notre Dame. All the smart kids there. Oh wow, that's great. That's a great
longer
story.
lunch hours for everybody.
I use that stuff too. I mean, why not? But that's what's happening in school lunch lines in Colorado. So there's a bill out there. So hopefully we'll be able to figure out that. But I like Billy's idea of just getting as many restaurants in there as possible from the outside. 50 in Lakewood, 47 in Castle Rock, 52 in Denver. Nuggets back at it tonight. Game 3 against the Lakers in the playoffs. NFL draft kicking off tonight in the Broncos with the 12th overall pick. The Rockies getaway day today. They play this afternoon against the Padres. They lost last night 5-2. The Avalanche in game 3 tomorrow night against the Winnipeg Jets right here in Elodo at Ball Arena. Jeff and Bill continue. It's Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your KNUS 5-day forecast calls for active spring weather conditions through the 5-day stretch. Showers and thunderstorms, strong to maybe a few isolated severe storms further to our east this Thursday afternoon. High temps still unseasonably warm today, mid to upper 70s, near 50 tonight. Trending cooler Friday, 60s, 50s this weekend. On and off periods of light to some moderate rain, a little thunderstorm activity as well Friday right through Sunday. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer on 710 KNUS.
All right, joining the Jeff and Bill Show is William Wolfe. He's the founder and executive director of the Center for Baptist Leadership. He also worked in Washington, D.C. for 10 years, including for 3 members of Congress, at Heritage Action for America, and as a political appointee in the Trump administration, both as a director at the State Department and as a deputy assistant secretary of defense at the Department of Defense. He's been published in numerous outlets like Newsweek, American Conservative, Christian Post, but he's now running an organization called the Center for Baptist Leadership. You're not going to get a sermon here, but you can get something a little different. Their mission at the Center for Baptist Leadership is to revitalize the Southern Baptist Convention by cultivating courageous and uncompromising Baptist leadership for the 21st century. They're essentially trying to clean out some of the wokeness happening in the Southern Baptist Convention. William, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thank you.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me on. Bill, nice to meet you via radio.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
Tell us what you're doing. So you have a Presbyterian, that's me, and you have a Catholic on with Bill. What's been
Just saying, you're in a cult.
What's been happening with the Southern Baptist Convention? I would see things pop up, right? You guys get together. There seemed to be quite a bit of controversy in some cases over the leadership of it. So what's going on within the Southern Baptist Convention, and what are you trying to change?
Yeah, that's a great question. As I like to say is, whether you're Southern Baptist or not, you should care about what happens with the Southern Baptist Convention, because the SBC is the largest Protestant denomination in the United States of America. We have about 47,000 churches and 14 million members in the SBC. As one pastor has put it, when the SBC sneezes, America catches a cold. And so I view the Southern Baptist Convention first as a Christian as a really important avenue for spreading the gospel and evangelizing and, bringing the hope of Jesus Christ to our country, to the nation. Absolutely. But it's also a very important cultural institution in the United States, a Christian institution. And just like the cultural Marxists have embarked on the long march through all the other institutions in our country, the media, the universities, etc., they have gone after the churches and they have come into the SBC. And so over the last 10 years, we've been fighting battles to stop the Southern Baptist Convention from going theologically liberal, culturally liberal, or now, as we just say it, going woke. And so we have all the same issues with, from a Christian perspective, accepting radical gender ideology and Christian language, embracing DEI hiring practices at churches and seminaries in the SBC, saying things like critical race theory is an analytical tool that Christians can use instead of something to be rejected and fought against. And then the big one is women's ordination for the pastorate. You know, this is something that is usually the first sign for any mainline Christian denomination that is going to go liberal, is they start allowing women pastors. And even the Catholic Church, they're holding the line on that strongly still, but the Southern Baptists have a big fight on it and a second vote on an amendment to stop it this June.
Talking with William Wolfe. William, people may not be aware of this. I am, because I went to seminary. I've seen how political these denominations can get. I remember watching the PCUSA, the Presbyterian Church of the USA, become entirely woke and liberal. And these, I want to say, leftists have engaged the political denominations. And when they do that, and especially when these denominations embrace kind of liberal thoughts and policies, they end up becoming smaller and smaller. People don't want to go to the churches anymore, and they eventually just kind of wither away and die. Help people understand, I think most people think, well, I'm just going to church. But no, there's actually like major battles happening within these denominations over their, as you mentioned, their theology, political practices, political values, all that. Help people understand that this just isn't popping up now. This has been going on for decades and decades within these denominations.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right. It's really been a fight over the last, century or so as modernity has taken over the modern world. We had a form of theological liberalism called higher criticism come out of Germany and, work its way across Europe and into America that denied all the core tenets of the Christian faith. They said, well, we don't really know if Jesus rose from the dead, and we don't actually believe that he did these miracles, and you can't believe that the Bible is true, and that it's not the inerrant, inspired, authoritative, infallible word of God. It's just a tradition passed on by men. Who knows who wrote this, that, or the other, but there's good stories here for living a moral life. And when you adopt that theological framework, that liberal framework of higher criticism, the Bible just becomes a feel-good story to be reshaped into any cause you could imagine it to be used for. And those are almost always progressive causes: mass immigration, socialism, the radical transgender ideology. And so not only does that hollow out the church, as one conservative commentator says, progressivism will hollow out your religion and wear it like a skin suit. It destroys the saving power of the gospel of Jesus Christ, but then it really takes the church and turns it into essentially just an organ of the progressive political party and the cultural revolution in our country. In Matthew 5, Jesus tells us to be salt and light. And when we do this, we lose both of those. That's exactly right. William Wolfe, founder and executive director of the Center for Baptist Leadership. To give you a sense of how pervasive this is, Bill, I'm sitting in this seat because of this integration of progressive politics into seminaries. I was on track to just become a pastor. I was very happy to just share the gospel, minister to people. I worked with an organization called Young Life. I went to Westmont College, got a degree in religious studies and philosophy. And then I went to Fuller Seminary. And I went to Fuller because some of my professors had gone there and my former pastor had gone to Fuller. And Fuller at one point was this kind of political break off from the liberalization that was taking place at Princeton. Okay. So I go down to Fuller and I'm very happy. And I take an ethics class by the chair of the ethics department. And it is so progressive and so liberal. And it was like, Bill, you're not even in the same category this guy was in. Wow. Right. Like we read books about how it was the reason we have poverty is because of rich people. That the gospel goes hand in hand. It was this thing called liberation theology. Right. If, know, Jesus would be a Marxist socialist type of stuff. And I'm sitting there in this class going, no, this is wrong. This is wrong. Not only biblically, it's wrong with, economically, it's wrong on all this stuff. And so I started to debate this professor every single day in class. You're wrong. And if you're going to debate your professor, you got to do your research. So I start reading, start listening to guys, conservative talk radio. I read a book by a guy named Hugh Hewitt. And then I become a full-blown conservative activist because this is active in churches.
William Wolfe, founder and executive director of the Center for Baptist Leadership. What does your work look like within the SBC? You're trying to stop these denominations from becoming woke. Many of them have been captured. What do you have? What do you do kind of almost on a daily basis to try to prevent the SBC, the Southern Baptist Convention, from fully embracing woke ideas?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. Thank you. So, I believe in the value of institutions. We do live in an anti-institutional age, and I can understand that. I'm very sympathetic to the populist movement that's, working its way out across America because our institutions have been corrupted and they can't be trusted. But the reality is conservatives and frankly, Christians and Catholics have built so many of the wonderful institutions in our country. And then the Marxists take them over. We pack up our bags and go home. We leave them buildings. We leave them endowments. And then we go start something newer and smaller and less impactful. And so our goal is to stop that from happening with the Southern Baptist Convention. We want to fight for the institution. We have 6 seminaries, the largest missionary sending agency in the world, and we do not want the left to get their hands on it and get control of it. And they are trying. They're coming after us. So in a practical level, we sort of have 2 horizons. One is the long-term work of institutional reform in the SBC, which will take many years, and that will be achieved through electing conservative presidents. The Southern Baptist Convention votes to elect a new president every year. And in this way, it's unlike many other major denominations, which are more hierarchical and top down, because the people in the Southern Baptist Convention actually get a say and get a vote. It's a very democratic religion. And so we are trying to make sure that conservative Southern Baptists wake up, not get woke, but wake up and come to our annual meeting in June this year to vote for a conservative president. And that's something we need to do year over year, because that president appoints very key trustees to oversee all of our entities and organizations and other key appointments. So in that sense, it's kind of like a turn out the vote campaign for the Southern Baptist Convention. So if you're listening to this and you're a Southern Baptist, we need you in Indianapolis, June 11th to 12th of this year to take key votes. And then year over year, we're engaging in sort of issue-based campaigns as well. So right now there's this amendment that passed last year that needs to pass again this year. It's a constitutional amendment that has to pass 2 years to re-articulate our commitment to male-only pastors in the Southern Baptist Convention. So we're working on that. We're working on financial transparency. Many people might be amazed to hear this, but the Southern Baptist Convention actually has less financial transparency than Planned Parenthood. We're a charitable organization. All of our entities are charitable organizations, but we don't even provide the 990 level disclosure that non-exempt charitable organizations provide to the government. Now, we don't want the SBC to have to provide that to the government, but we want that financial accountability to the churches so people know how their tithe dollars are being spent. And we know from reporting done by people like Megan Basham and her upcoming book, Shepherds for Sale, that Southern Baptist tithe dollar money is being used to advance liberal causes. So we want financial transparency. And then at the Center for Baptist Leadership, just sort of the nuts and bolts of it is we'll be running articles that tackle these issues. We just launched a podcast where we're having, the top thinkers in Baptist life come on and educate people, get them informed, really aiming to equip institutional leaders, pastors, and engaged lay members to fight for the future of their denomination and the gospel witness of Southern Baptists.
William Wolfe's the founder and executive director of the Center for Baptist Leadership. William, people have criticized you as being a Christian nationalist and a threat to America. What's your response to those criticisms?
Well, my response to that is, that America had a Christian founding. I really like that language from Mark David Hall, a very respected historian. He says you can debate whether or not America was founded as a Christian nation per se, but he thinks the historical evidence shows that America had a Christian founding. And this is something that was widely accepted in America for hundreds of years. It's really only been in the last 70 years that this has become under increasing attack. David Brewer, Supreme Court Justice, 1892 in the Church of the Holy Trinity, University of the United States, he reviews, the consideration of what makes America, and he concludes, after looking at all these things, our customs, our laws, our, the way we do life together. And he says, these and many other matters which might be noticed at a volume of unofficial declarations to the mass of organic utterances that this is a Christian nation. And so, my association with Christian nationalism is really nothing more than to help defend evangelical Americans and, patriotic Americans from this new slur by the left that attempts to make us sound extreme. And I just want to say, actually, guys, this is historical American political philosophy and an understanding of who we are as a nation. And you know what? It's not such a bad or scary thing.
Now, question for you on this one. What do you think the role then is for Christian nationalism? What is the goal you are looking for in promoting this?
Yeah, thank you. That is a great question. So there's actually a critic of Christian nationalism who gave a very good definition of it. And he sort of speaks to the goal in it. So this is from a guy, his name is Paul Miller, not a fan of Christian nationalism, but this is how he defines it. He says, Christian nationalism is the belief that there's something identifiable as an American nation distinct from other nations. So I'll pause right there. The first goal of Christian nationalism is to help ensure that America is not subsumed and taken over by the globalist blob. That's the nationalism part of it. We believe in sovereign nation states who get to self-determine their future and their path and not be influenced and overtaken by the WEF, the WHO, the UN, what have you. We want national sovereignty, strong borders, and the ability for a nation to determine its own course and future. So we're nationalist in that sense in a positive way. And then he says that American nationhood is and should remain defined by Christianity or Christian cultural norms, and that the American people and their government should actively work to defend, sustain, and cultivate America's Christian culture, heritage, and values. So that would be the other goal. So how does it look like for us to be rightly nationalistic in America? I would say it should be a Christian nationalistic sense when we're promoting Christian cultural heritage and values. And that's not at all what we're promoting today, because I believe that those Christian cultural heritage and values uphold strong families, uphold marriage, uphold the sanctity of life from the moment of fertilization until natural death. That's actually Catholic teaching, and I agree with it too. It's Catholic and historic Protestant teaching, but we've lost that one. And so that's really defend the American nation and keep us grounded in the Christian cultural heritage and values that's made us the freest country that I think the world has ever seen.
I appreciate the answer. Can you help me with your term of nation? Because nationalism derives from nation. How are you defining a nation?
Yeah, so I think that a nation is an entity that is self-governing and self-identified. It recognizes itself as being a distinct entity on the global playing stage. This is sort of a post-Westphalian view of nations, and so that you have borders, you have a people, you have governing documents, you have a political model that is agreed upon and adopted in that nation, and really, of course, in the democratic sense of the way, that the people have the right to determine the laws and the future of that land. And that, I think, stands quite in contradistinction to the open borders globalist view, which, I mean, this is so clearly articulated by the main WEF philosopher, Yuval Harari, who argues that in the future there will be no nation states. There will be, just one, global governing entity that will determine everything for everybody else. And I reject that entirely.
Interesting. I find it interesting that you've kind of gone into the idea of the nation state, because I believe a nation can be something outside of politics and with those defined borders. I think you can do it with ethnicity, culture, a few other things. Could the Christian nationalism be achieved without taking control of the U.S. government, without having that idea of being in control of the nation state? Can you establish that sovereignty without the political power?
Well, when you say, take control of the U.S. government, I mean, I assume you just mean, use the avenues to achieve political and power in our country that's available to anybody out there, regardless of what they believe. Run in elections and become a president, exercise authority, elect good judges.
I'm actually going one step further. I'm going to say that once you're a Christian and you're in charge, you then are bound to use your religious doctrine in order to shape the laws that you're going to put in front of the people. That's where I'm going with it.
Okay, well, I mean, I think to that question, do I think if a Christian has political authority in the United States of America, they should govern as a Christian? To that, I would say absolutely, because the reality right now is whether you're a Christian or an atheist or a Catholic or some radical progressive Marxist, everybody uses whatever authority they have in accordance to their worldview and their essentially religious belief system, whether they call it that or not. I mean, that is exactly what's happening right now with, look at any number one of these radical justices or judges enacting lawfare against Donald Trump. They're not doing it according to the Constitution. They're doing it according to their, their personal beliefs that are informed by a deeply religious view, again, whether they recognize it or not. My point there is all law, and this goes back to Aquinas, one of the key philosophers of the Catholic Church, and even further all the way back to Augustine, all law is essentially a governing religious enactment. There's no such thing as moral free or value free governing. So yes, I think a Christian should govern according to their religious beliefs because that's what everybody does.
Now, do you see how there could be a problem with that, given that the person that is elected as a Christian also has to represent people that are non-Christians, whether they be agnostic, atheist, Jewish, Islam, Hindu, and the idea of the person, since they've been elected, say, well, now I am going to make the rules that are governing our society based on what my book says. Isn't that a problem given how America was set up?
Well, no, actually, I don't think it is, because again, let's just and that's pretty vague. So let me just try to assume a couple things and then answer it. First of all, what are some of the things that the Christian book says? Well, it says first and foremost that there is a God, and so I absolutely want everybody, every Christian who's been duly elected to exercise any degree of political authority to recognize that there is a God over the government, because if there is no God over the government becomes God. And so I actually think that when Christians are in political authority, they're going to be much more bounded than, these unbounded atheists who believe that humanity is just materialism and can be reshaped according to whatever philosophy or whim is coming down the track at that time of the day or culture or what have you. And so, and then again, it's just, I absolutely think that Christians, if they're elected into positions of power, whether it's in the United States or anywhere else, they should rule according to the laws of the land. Of course, again, Augustine said an unjust law is no law at all. And that was also rearticulated by MLK. So I think that you have to recognize sometimes there are laws that are unjust and you should work to change those. But I'm certainly not advocating, for revolution or ignoring or trampling the Constitution. In fact, I would argue as Christianity has become less prevalent in America, the Constitution gets trampled more and more and more. We respected our Constitution, our representative government in the United States, when we had more Christians, ruling and exercising political power than we do today.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I could push on that a little bit, but I'm not sure that the argument's necessarily fair, nor is my analogy. So that's. I appreciate your example about using the Christian using their faith to guide their choices, but could we make the same argument with someone that is Muslim, that they then could look to the Quran and say this is the guiding principles, and they could honestly disagree with some of the conclusions come to by you, myself, and Jeff based on our shared faith. Based on things like life, how to treat your spouse, how to treat your kids. But their faith tells them and instructs them to do something different. And that's the linchpin and the issue that I have just with the terminology and the idea of Christian nationalism, that because we are of faith, we then need to use all the guiding principles of our faith to enact the laws, because we are not ruling over Christians. If we wanted to have a Christian nation, we could do that. But it doesn't necessarily mean sovereignty like you described it based on borders in a political system. It can be something else. It can be the church. The church together is a nation. There is a nation of Catholicism. There's a nation of baptism. There's a nation of Lutheranism, because it would be defined that way based on their shared cultures and experiences. And they also are self-selected.
Yeah. So, I mean, that second point there, though, that just isn't how things are working out currently. There is, the Catholic Church might be one of the more distinct examples of what you're speaking to, but actually I reject a lot of Catholic doctrine that's referred to as integralism, and Catholics historically actually viewed their religious seat of power, the Pope, I mean, especially during the Holy Roman Empire, as being above the civil rulers of the day. And as a Protestant Christian, I reject that. I think that Scripture teaches that God has given a certain authority and jurisdiction to civil governors, and he's given a certain authority and jurisdiction to the church. And yes, the Bible does use language like the church is a holy nation. And so if you're using nation like that to describe a certain group of people with a shared identity, I don't discount that. I'd grant that happily, but that's not how we deal with nations as a political entity in the global playing stage today. And so so when I'm talking about nations, I am talking about sovereign political entities that have the right to police their borders. I mean, the Catholic Church, the Protestant denomination, they don't have any right to police the borders of any land anywhere, except, well, the Catholics do with the Vatican, right? That's again an exception. So I'm not an integralist. So I would actually reject sort of the fusing of church and state in one ecclesiastical and civil body. That's actually much more akin to Catholic teaching, and that's actually one of the critiques that I usually get on Christian nationalism. People want to call me a neo-integralist, and I actually totally reject that framework. But on your second question there, Bill, because it's important in terms of, can a Hindu rule according to his faith or a Muslim rule according to his faith? Well, absolutely. I actually assume they would. And you bring up Muslims, and that's probably one of the easiest ones to answer, is that the teachings of Islam and Quran are actually highly incompatible with the American political system, which again, I say, and I think is historically accurate. The American political system is deeply informed by Christianity. And this has been a concern by many people throughout American history, is that they have an allegiance to Allah, and they have a view of governing. I actually believe Islam is much more of sort of a theocratic fascist political system more than it is sort of just a standard religion. It's a conquering religion. And so, I would expect that Muslims would rule according to their faith, but I would just politely suggest that is actually, that is quite incongruent with the American political system. And if for some reason we had all of a sudden majority Muslim rule, in Congress in America, or in state governors or state houses, that America would be reshaped, into something that would be essentially unrecognizable as America as we know and love it.
Oh, absolutely. I 110% agree. And that's why, and you're absolutely accurate in why I used the Islamic example. One, because it's very easy to understand, but also I agree with you that it is incongruent with many of the functions of American democracy. And that's why I used it as a point, because I feel that if someone that is Islamic is elected to public office, if they are putting the Quran in front of the Constitution, we have an issue that we need to honor the people you are serving as a whole, all of the various ethnicities and all the various religions. And that's my pushback with the idea of, just like you talked about the intersection, of bringing the church and the state together. And that's where I push back on the idea of Christian nationalism. I want to turn a little bit and talk about religious tests. Should there be, and what do you think about religious tests for someone who is running for office?
Yeah. Okay. So again, I just want to be very clear that William Wolfe personally does not support or advance the idea of merging state and church power together. I think they should be separate, but I also think we should understand what separation of church and state really means. It's actually not in our Constitution. It's from Thomas Jefferson in a letter to who? To Baptists, actually, the Danbury Baptists. But in terms of religious tests for office, I mean, I think that's something that people have the right to determine for themselves. We used to have, people who advocated for religious tests of office. Isaac Backus was a Baptist who argued that only Christians should be able to assume public office in America. John Locke, who himself is certainly no advocate of what we understand to be Christian nationalism. He was, an Enlightenment figure. He argued that atheists weren't fit to hold public office. And so my point on that, my take on that is really that would be a sort of particular prudential application for a people that they could make for themselves if they wanted to. But I don't see that being something that is currently in any way, shape, or form at play in the American context today. That's certainly not something I'm going around advocating for or trying to advance.
William Wolfe, founder and executive director of the Center for Baptist Leadership here on the Jeff and Bill Show. Tell you what, I think we could, you and I, Mr. Wolfe, we could actually advocate for a religious test for office. But hear me out. This is what we do, okay? We make it a religious test for office, but we turn it into a game show. We choose a host, we put it in prime time, and if you say that you are Islamic, then we have the Islamic Jeopardy. And you go ahead and you're running for office, and then we see how much you know. And then we have the Christian Jeopardy. And we do every different night, we could do a different religion. And then based on your winnings and your prize total, you get enough money, you can add it to your campaign. And if you end up being busted, then you got to not run for office. I think if we make it into entertainment, maybe we'd get something there. But that's just me and my weird ideas. But thanks for the conversation. This has been really fun.
This has been great, guys. William Wolfe, founder and executive director of the Center for Baptist Leadership. Their mission is to revitalize the Southern Baptist Convention by cultivating courageous and uncompromising Baptist leadership for the 21st century. Bottom line, getting the wokeness out of the church. You can go to centerforbaptistleadership.org. That's centerforbaptistleadership.org to learn more about their organization, or you can follow William Wolfe on Twitter. He's got a big following there. William_E_Wolfe with an E.
Check him out
there, and follow what he's posting over there. William, thanks so much for the conversation. Thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me. And if you're a Baptist, I hope to see you in Indianapolis, June 11 to 12.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. All right. I actually found you guys having more in agreement than I thought y'all were going to have. So I appreciate the intellectual work that guys like William Wolfe are doing and others online to explore what it means to be a Christian nation, to have a Christian influence in our laws, all that
really
stuff.
nice.
So I was just saying while you were taking that call, Bill, I think you guys had more in common than I thought you all.
Yeah, we did. And I was saying goodbye to William there, just thanking him off air for the idea of allowing us to mix it up that way.
Yep.
Which I really appreciated. It wasn't adversarial, but it was intellectual. And I said, that was a blast. And he said, that was one of the most fun conversations I've had in a long time. And I appreciate that. That was fun.
Thank you, William, for being on the Jeff and Bill Show. Let's go to Rick in Central Denver. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Rick.
Well, hey, thank you for your great layout there of the situation here. That is very good. I had called to get the spelling of the name Wolfe, but you got it for me.
Yeah,
W-O-L-F. But I've been here many years. I'd like to say I live downtown, but I'm from Illinois. And, they like this, I think it's out of one of the major offices, it's Attorney General of the state of Illinois. He's Islamic. And anyway, it brings up good points. If it had a Islamic majority in the country or a lot of people in there, they might just try to take over everything. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it's exactly right. That if we got to somewhere if we talk about the idea of letting the church rule the government, we have to be really careful about which church, because there are a lot of Muslims. And if they show up and if that is the purview that the largest religion gets to take control of the government, we may have gotten a cursed monkey paw.
Yeah, there's a lot there. We haven't even explored theonomies. So when you get into church and state, and is the church going to control the state and all that stuff, we can get to that more in a second. This is a good conversation. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Jeff Hunt here for my friends at Dan Kaplis Law. Dan suggests that you should choose a lawyer who shares your values. Speaking of really great Christians, because of who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Kaplis is the son of a police officer. Dan is also a former seminarian like myself. He is a pro-family, pro-life. He would be the first call I would make if I needed help. Dan has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Kaplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm. For serious cases, Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, give him a call, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dankaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS Law.com. Bill, you're not on Twitter, but
yeah, not much.
Dan Kaplis posted a video. He was at that game where Jamal Murray.
See that. Yes.
And he's like right on the floor there, and he goes epic as he shoots.
Yeah.
And it goes in.
The thing for me, and see, this thing is you're watching that going, wow, look at this. I'm sitting, you know what my first thing is? How do you get tickets on the floor? You know?
You need to go to a Nuggets game.
Know?
It's Dan Kaplis law everywhere.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So,
but I was wondering, who does he know? Is that part of the package that if we advertise there, you and I can go sit courtside?
Yes. I think that's exactly how it works.
Alrighty. I'm going to go over here to the email machine and I'm going to email the general manager right now because we need to go to some games, my friend. Okay. You take it out.
There you go. All right. Ben and Joe, we'll get to you in just a second. We do have an open line, 303-696-1971. What do you think of that conversation about Christian nationalism? You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Got to send this email.
right, let's get to the phone lines here. Joe in Arvada, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning.
Hi, Jeff, Billy. I think we're overthinking it a little bit. And the reason is because liberalism has perverted the meaning. And let me be specific. You didn't used to have to say Christian national.
Right.
You didn't used to have to say conservative. You just said it in one word, American.
Yeah.
The idea used to be clearly understood everywhere around the world. If you said, I'm an American, everybody knew where you were coming from. But the progressives and liberals have distorted it. For a while, we had to then say, wait, I'm an American conservative. See, it used to be you were assumed to be an American conservative when you said, I'm an American. But now the liberals have perverted it. What we need to do is purge, put it back to where it was. American, if you want to get precise, means Christian national American conservative.
Now,
period.
Help me understand what you mean by Christian national. Nationalism? How are you defining that? I mean, are you this conversation I had with Wolfe? Are you looking at the blending of the church and the state?
Well, I will acknowledge that Christian national could define other countries, but here's the thing: there isn't one. America is the only place really where Christians are welcomed and thrive in their belief system. The rest of the world, Christians are looked down derogatorily. And here's the thing: we need to put an end to that. This idea that you can either the Jews or the Christian ideologies that you can discriminate against them, that needs to stop ASAP. We need to stop it by getting rid of these university professors that are out there protesting with Hamas. Send them a message. You want to do that? Go over to France.
Joe, appreciate the call. Joe from Arvada. Joe's line will be open 303-696-1971. Let's go to Ben in Denver. Ben, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Morning.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me. Great interview with William Wolfe there. I just wanted to follow up on some of the things Bill was asking about, just to clarify. I think what William was saying was that it's not about the church taking over the state, but it's just individual Christians pursuing political office and using those lawful means to order society in a Christian manner or in a Christian way. And I think as Christians, we have to be confident enough to say that ordering a society and a culture in that Christian way is actually for humanity's flourishing. It's for the flourishing of the citizens. And so I far more, to your question about a Muslim governor or something like that, I far more am likely to believe that a Christian governor will have religious liberty and respect the rights of citizens who are not Christians than someone on the godless left or someone who's a Muslim governor. And so I think religious liberty, ideas like that, are Christian ideas that have come through years of Christian political thought. And so I think as Christians, we need to be confident and clear that, believing in the gospel of Jesus Christ is actually for the human flourishing and the common good of our nation.
Ben, to your point on that, and I appreciate the call. I think if you looked at maps of where the LGBTQ movement has been able to get hold and move through culture, it's predominantly Christian or Christian historical societies where there's a high level of tolerance. You're not seeing gay pride parades in Iran. You're not seeing them in Northern Africa. You're not even really seeing them in China. Yeah. So to your point, Ben, there's a lot of tolerance, and I believe flexibility and good governance that happens under Christian leadership. All right, we'll continue this conversation. Luis, you're going to be up next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. debate team award ceremony for
We
theater.
don't need 3 hours
No,
here.
we don't, because everyone wants to see their kid, but your kid only gets up there for 30 seconds and you're stuck there the entire time.
We just get up and leave. All right, another beautiful day in the greatest city in America, and we're gearing up for a whole nother hour of engaging discussions, critical analysis, and most importantly, your calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. This audio I'm going to play for you right after the news of a pastor condemning you as sinful if you even thought of buying a Donald Trump Bible. You're not going to want to miss this sermon. We'll go to Lewis in a second as well. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Morning, Jeff and Billy. I'm looking forward to hearing that. Should be good. 57 and sunny in Denver. Should feel temperatures in the upper 70s today. Should be beautiful. There will be some thunderstorms in the area later, though. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story: Golden police investigating a road rage shooting that happened early this morning near Highway 58 and Washington Avenue. The victim suffered a gunshot wound with non-life-threatening injuries. The suspect fled, and police haven't released any more detailed information. Former Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein having his conviction for sex crimes in New York overturned. The New York Court of Appeals ruled that he did not receive a fair trial. The court found that a judge made an error allowing women to testify about alleged sexual assaults that were not part of the charges against him. But he will remain imprisoned on another rape conviction that happened in L.A. Former President Trump among construction workers this morning before he headed to his kangaroo court case in New York. Presidential immunity is at the top of Trump's mind.
There's not a Democrat in there. These are people. Look at that building. Look what we can do. We built a lot of great buildings in the city with these people, and they've given me great support. They're really amazing. Well, we have a big case today. This judge isn't allowing me to go. We have a big case today in the Supreme Court on presidential immunity. A president has to have immunity. If you don't have immunity, you just have a ceremonial president.
So part of Trump's legal team in D.C. to hear what the Supreme Court has to say about that. We'll find out this afternoon, hopefully. President Biden is actually alive and campaigning in front of small groups, and he's reading everything on the teleprompter, even the words that aren't supposed to be read.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause. 4 more years.
So I was just thinking, what if they started saying, instead of 4 more years, they started saying, pause, pause, pause. Oh man,
It's like
Texas
that. It's like that. That audio of. I think they're saying, "Let's go, Brandon."
Yes,
and then that turned into a whole chant.
Yeah, it did. Absolutely.
No, pause. Pause.
What
Pause.
will we hear next? All right, Texas Governor Greg Abbott says Hamas supporters in the University of Texas are anti-Semitic and belong in jail, and Senator Josh Hawley agrees.
Why not do it for Jewish Americans? I mean, it shouldn't be that in this country, in this day and age, that if you are a Jewish American, you fear for your life because all of these bougie jihadists at these universities whose brains are addled by TikTok are out there calling for your death, calling for the destruction of the state of Israel. I mean, what is going on these campuses? Send in the National Guard and wake these kids up.
And that's what we're going to see. William Wolfe, Center for Baptist Leadership, on the show this morning with the guys and fighting back against wokeism in the church.
Mass immigration, socialism, the radical transgender ideology. And so not only does that hollow out the church, as one conservative commentator says, progressivism will hollow out your religion and wear it like a skin suit. It destroys the saving power of the gospel of Jesus Christ, but then it really takes the church and turns it into essentially just an organ of the progressive political party and the cultural revolution in our country.
So true, so true. 54 in North Glen, 53 in Littleton, 57 in Denver. Nuggets and Lakers back at it tonight. Game 3. The Nugs lead it to 2-0. And the NFL draft kicks off tonight. Broncos with the 12th overall pick, and the Rockies getaway day today against the Padres. They lost last night 5-2. Avalanche, the playoff series with the Winnipeg Jets, continues in Denver tomorrow at Ball Arena. It's tied at 1 game apiece. Jeff and Bill continue Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill show. In a second, I'm going to play this audio of this pastor. Mark Cuban posted this the other day. Very interesting. Let's go to Luis. You've been on hold for a while. Thank you for your patience. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, brother. Listen, I think it's time that we require folks running for office to read the Declaration of Independence and write an essay on it. And when they take that oath, it's not only on Constitution, but on the Declaration of Independence, because in that we know it says we are endowed by who? By our Creator, not by the government for our rights.
Yeah, here.
So I say it's time to get them to read the Declaration of Independence, write an essay on it, and tell us what you believe that document is saying to us and to you before you get elected to an office in this country.
Lewis, I love what you're thinking there. I want to go one better than you, my friend. I think you're on step one. I think we can do much better than this, okay? So you, me, Jeff, are going to talk about this for a sec. This is what I believe we need to do. Everybody talks about voter ID and things like that and citizenship tests. No. We need to have an elections test. This is my proposal right here on 710 KNUS, Jeff and Bill show, 9:08 in the morning on a Thursday. We need to institute an SAT or ACT style test for everybody that wants to run for office. And what I mean by that is we have several versions of the test. We can all talk about what that should look like. But like you said, it's going to be a test on the Constitution and citizenship, and we can figure out the parameters. And like with the SAT and ACT, you get different shots at it. You get 3 shots taking this test. 1, 2, 3. You then, as the candidate, have to publicly release one of these tests so that we get to see your answers and your grades. And mandatory on this test are 3 essay questions, and we get to read them all. If you want to run for office, take the test.
The Donald Trump essay responses.
Yeah.
I'd like to know on that essay test, do we have multiple choice for genders?
That's good. How do you identify? That's a really good idea.
Well,
that would
how
be
many
the
genders are there?
That'd be good.
2, 3, 5,
fantastic.
70 plus.
I think it's wonderful. Let's have a conversation about what it should be, but let's test
2.
these people before they get
answer.
Into office. Let's see if they know if they're qualified at all to do the job. I love what you're saying, Lewis.
But again, many of them, they all, I think most of them take the oath on the Constitution. Yeah. But that's not enough for me. The Declaration of Independence, which is what, 1 page long, to tell me what you mean about the Creator. What is that telling you in the Declaration of Independence? Not a God, but we're talking about the Creator, and that all men are what? Created equal.
Yeah.
Everyone. Lewis, appreciate the call.
Idea.
Unfortunately, if you put the Constitution and Declaration of Independence into your Bible, man, this pastor is not happy. Listen to this. Mark Cuban shared this audio yesterday.
Some of you bring politics into the church. You think that politics is spiritual stuff. Politics is of this world. You think it's your duty to be political about this, that, and the other. No, your duty is to serve the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, body, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Don't be talking to me about my spiritual responsibility to vote. I don't have a spiritual responsibility to vote. I have a civic privilege. Don't be telling me that voting is spiritual. See, that's what happens when you don't read and pray. When you don't read and pray, you say, wow, there's a Bible out now that includes the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Isn't that wonderful? No. No, it's disgusting. It's blasphemous. It's a ploy. Are you kidding me? Some of you are so encouraged by that. Let me tell you something. The gospel is not an American gospel. It is the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. But Pastor, I bought the Bible. Really? You're telling me that you're encouraged because someone took a government, U.S. Constitution, a document that says we are of the people, by the people, and for the people, the people, the people, the people. And you have put it right beside the Word of God, which is eternal, unchanging, which says, of him, by him, through him, to him, from him are all things. And you're going to put those together and be happy about it? God forbid. Now, you can get mad if you want to, but I'm going to tell you something. If you glory in that kind of thing, you don't have a prayer life. If you glory in that kind of mess, political mess, you do not know what the Word of God says. I'm going to rear back and tell you something. This is not my home. This world is not my home. I've been sent out just like the 70 were sent out. You've been put here and sent out just like the 70 were sent out. We've been put here as strangers and pilgrims, and we are passing through. I am just walking through. I'm just renting an apartment for a little while in this strange and foreign land. No, sir. My real citizenship is in heaven.
Mark Cuban posted that yesterday and was getting a whole lot of thoughts and comments on it.
His cadence was fun. Speaking
yeah,
of
right.
Yeah, probably that. That was good.
Oh gosh. So it's like, where do I begin with that one?
Yeah,
I will start with this. Thank God Martin Luther King Jr. and William Wilberforce did not take that advice.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Just passing through.
Yeah.
Just about, people enslaved over there, just passing through.
Yeah.
What I don't get is how he squares love your neighbor and not my home. I'm just passing through in his mind.
That is a really tough one for me too, because it's abdication of responsibility. Yes, we are just passing through, but we are tasked by our Creator and by our Savior to have stewardship over this realm as well. We are supposed 100%. To be taking care of it and taking care of each other. And when he talks about the idea of this is not my home, this is not, that's fine. You can talk about it not being a reward, but for the time being, it is your home. And let's say that you take an apartment in a foreign land. Does that abdicate you from responsibilities to everybody else around you? Are you not supposed to be a productive citizen and member of that society? You don't get to just turn around and go, no, not for us. We've seen that push in places here in America and also in Europe, places where they try to establish religious boundaries inside of a certain area and say, no, this is ours. We can't. Had a conversation the other day about the CHOP up in Seattle and Portland with a texter. Same thing. No. We're not worried about this. We're going to do our own thing and not worry about the evils of the outside world. We're going to pull inside and do. And I disagree. You can't. Not as a Christian. That's not what we're called to do.
There's, I see this almost all the time.
Yeah,
at churches, and this is why I don't work very well with pastors. I mean, a lot of people are like, people are like, "Oh, aren't all your friends pastors?" No, actually, it's with the Western conservatism and all that stuff. I almost never worked with pastors, and you end up with this kind of bizarre focus that politics is really dirty. Right, lawmaking is really dirty. We're going to push that away. Where and you almost kind of feel called out and isolated by these pastors. I think it's a rejection of the teachings of the body of Christ, that God has just gifted people in lots of different ways, and He has gifted some people to write our laws. And if they're Christians, we should be, even if they're not, ministering to them, guiding them, supporting them, not pushing them away, going, this is dirty. This is dirty. What you're doing is horrible. It's a distraction from the gospel. His argument would essentially, his worldview would destroy all of Christian higher education.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by this? What does it mean to spend 4 years training to be a Christian accountant?
Yeah.
We're just passing through.
Yeah,
this isn't my home. Why would you spend 4 years of your life? You should only become a gospel presenter. You should only be out there trying to get people in the lifeboat as quickly as you can, because we're going to hell. That type of thinking, there's no point in Christian counselors, Christian teachers, Christian accountants, Christian business leaders, Christian musicians, Christian painters.
Yeah.
All of it's gone.
The other part that I have is, if we are just passing through, it leads me to a point to where I don't have to respect rules, regulations, laws here, because it is so temporary. And that could mean that, I could break certain laws and behave a certain way here, as long as I felt it was going to be for the greater good. The idea being, okay, I'm a Christian accountant and I have several rich business clients, and I just skim off a little bit of money from each one of them, but I turn around and donate that money to the church or to a Christian NGO. That's not okay. That's not okay for you to be breaking the law in furtherance of it. And the argument would be, well, it's okay. This is only temporary. This is corporeal, the realm. And instead, my reward is in heaven, and I'm going to be able to stand there and explain that, I broke the law, but I did this in furtherance of the gospel. I did this in furtherance of helping people. So it's okay for me to have broken the law. It's a justification for it. And I totally disagree.
Did you ever see the movie Chariots of Fire?
Yes.
So Eric Liddell kind of wrestles with this, right?
Yeah.
He's the main character in there.
Running.
And right.
Tired.
And his parents are missionaries. His whole family is missionaries. He ends up eventually becoming a missionary. He dies in China as a missionary. But he's an incredibly talented runner.
Yeah.
And eventually you get that great line, I feel God's pleasure when I run.
Yeah.
Like I feel He created me. I feel His joy when I run. I often look, I would love to just proclaim the gospel and have most people like me. Instead, I'm thrust into politics where I debate all the time, but it's partially because this is just the way God gifted me. So anyways, Mark Cuban.
Chariots of Fire did for me. Told me to not join the track team. I was a soccer player, so I do the running thing, but we did it at purpose. We're chasing again. We're just silly. We're chasing around a little round ball on a field. That's fine, but he's just running. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm like, I'm not. Yeah, I am not joining the track team. So,
Francis, we're going to get to you in just a second. You've been very patient. Men, you've heard a lot about how treating low testosterone can improve your sleep, your workouts, and your energy levels. But I want to talk to you about your love drive, because low testosterone can have a significant impact on your desire for intimacy. And if you're in a relationship or wanting to be in a relationship, a low love drive can really be a problem. There's good news, guys. Go to RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com and take the low T quiz on their website. It's a simple 10-question quiz with yes or no answers, and it only takes 2 minutes. Then schedule a consult with Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic. A Colorado licensed medical provider will review your results with you and discuss your options. Cost of the appointment is only $99, which includes medical consult, a T and PSA test. And if you sign up for testosterone treatment the day of your appointment, your visit is free. Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic has served the Front Range of Colorado for nearly a decade and successfully treated tens of thousands of men. Give them a call today at 720-440-7900, 720-440-7900, or visit RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. That's RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. Francis Golden, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Francis.
What's up, you guys? How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Hey, it's an interesting conversation you guys were having with what the pastor was saying. The problem is it begs the question. Yes, we are all just passing through. This is transitory life. But the real question is, what are you doing while you're just passing through? That's the heart of the question.
Yep.
And if your answer is, oh, I'm just waiting around till heaven happens to me, that's not right. That's inappropriate. You've got to be a good tending of the garden while in this transitory state. And I guess it brings it all around to what the pastor's talking about with these Trump Bibles. I don't think it's something that condemns you automatically or should be condemned, but and here's why. I think if you're doing that, if you're buying Trump Bibles, you're kind of self-condemning. I mean, you're a sucker. You're condemning yourself to a life of suckerdom any more than you're buying, Trump tennies or Trump perfume or any other darn thing. Why don't you just donate money? I mean, Bibles aren't hard to come by. You can print out constitutions off the printer anytime you want.
You used to be able to take them from the hotel rooms. The Gideons used to leave them there all the time.
Yeah.
Free Bible. Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, heck, throw in the Book of Mormon too.
Yes.
What, honest to God, what I would like to know, I better watch out. I could get struck by lightning with all this honest to God and hell yes stuff.
Yeah.
But
and we don't want to be hit either. Just careful.
No, I don't want to do that. I want to continue my transitory life here a little longer. But
you're the best.
Here's the deal: is that I would like to ask anybody who's bought one of these things, do they feel in earnest like they're getting something more for their buck? Is this a better Bible because it's sold by Trump? If you extract out that you've got a Bill of Rights and Constitution that come with it, which are easy to find. I can pull it up on my phone anytime I want. Are you getting something more? Is this a better version of the Bible? Is this does this make it more holy?
I think one thing it's important to recognize, and I think this pastor missed it. You're not actually changing the words of the Bible, right? So they're not adding or subtracting the Bible. You're just kind of putting some stuff around it. And if you go into any Bible store, there's one just down the street here, you're going to find a Bible for athletes, Bible for mothers, Bible for fathers, professional workers Bibles. I mean, children's Bibles. For years, people have taken the Bible and then just added little things around it to encourage you, maybe a page in there to think about the particular scripture as an athlete.
Some have red words in them. I've seen this.
Yeah, right. and there's a Bible out there called the Founder's Bible, which was essentially talking, and it has history of the importance of the Bible in the creation of this nation and stuff like that. None of that's the problem. Look, it's a piece of campaign kitsch, right? And some people buy this stuff. I've had friends that collect buttons, that type of thing. This will be kind of a historical little moment in history where it's like, did you get the Trump Bible, or did you get the Trump shoes, or did you, it's a moment in history. Is it going to make you holier? No. Right. Is it going to make you less holy? No. Do I hope people read the Bible that maybe haven't in the past? Sure. But just the all-out condemnation of any type of political engagement, which is where he goes, I think misses the mark there. Francis,
can I ask you guys something? Can I ask you guys something real quick?
Please.
Did the Trump Bibles, and I'm curious about this because, there's certain, like you said, there's certain passages that would be for an athlete Bible or, kid's Bible.
Oh, no. Where are you going?
Does Trump edit out the adultery part? I mean, I'm just curious about that.
Yeah,
You
like
know,
Thomas Jefferson did. No, Matthew 5:28, which is
are those redacted?
Matthew 5:28 says you can't even look at a woman lustfully. So
my favorite part though
wish
is in the
Donald Trump
middle.
would read that.
In the middle there, middle of the New Testament, you open up the Trump Bible and it's a pop-up. And what happens is it's Jesus on the cross, but it's the thing, if you move it left or right, it goes from Jesus to Trumk. Jesus to Trump. There on the cross.
God.
That's my favorite part.
Save us from our country's
I'm
sins.
condemning you. I'm condemning you, Billy. That is sacrilege.
Thank you. I deserve it.
Sacrilege.
That was a great call,
Later, you guys.
Francis.
Thank you,
from
Francis.
Golden.
I'll have a great
that was
day.
a lot of fun. Thank you for your patience on that.
Thanks for playing along.
Folks, it's Jeff Hunt on behalf of the Colorado Farm Bureau. Whether you pulled out your skis or snowmobiles this last winter, it was a great year for winter fun. But the snow means even more to Colorado agriculture. And I want you to know that our state's farmers and ranchers are doing their part to protect our future water resources. The people of Colorado agriculture continue improving the efficiency of their irrigation systems and adopting farming practices that help crops use less water to grow. They're planting drought-resistant varieties, and they're leading talks with state policymakers about how to preserve water supplies when we have good years like this last one. My friends at the Colorado Farm Bureau are leaders in water conservation and water policy. They understand how to balance water for crops and water for families, and they're doing more with less. You can do your part, and I highly recommend you join and become a member today. Go to coloradofarmbureau.com. That's coloradofarmbureau.com to join them. We'll continue when we come back next. Listen to this audio from MSNBC about how hard it is for young people.
Oh, yeah.
All right? It's now got to MSNBC. The American dream. Is it dead? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710, KNUS.
At this hour in London, I'm Julia Chapman, and here are the top stories we're following. U.S. officials say Ukraine is already using long-range ATACMS ballistic missiles supplied in secret by America. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the delivery of the weapons was approved by President Joe Biden in March, and some have already reached the country. The delivery was so covert that Ukrainian officials were still asking for the weapons in recent days, not knowing they had already arrived. The long-range missiles were used to bomb a Russian airfield in Crimea last week, as well as another occupied area of Ukraine on Wednesday. The U.S. has not revealed how many long-range ATACMS have been promised to Ukraine. Rising auto insurance rates are squeezing car owners in the United States. Haley Bianco reports.
If your car insurance rates keep going up, you're not alone. In the U.S., auto insurance rates rose 2.6% in March and are up 22% from a year ago. Wall Street expects its profit to skyrocket nearly 80% in 2024 on a 14% jump in revenue. Wall Street expects Allstate's profit to surge 13-fold in 2024 as revenue rises 10% to $62.9 billion.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm Julia Chapman in London on Salem News Channel.
Is the American dream dead for young people? Listen to this guy on MSNBC this week.
For the first time in our nation's history, a 30-year-old man or woman isn't doing as well as his or her parents were at 30. That is the social compact breaking down. People aged 30 to 34, 60% of them in 1990 had one child. Now it's 27%. People are opting out of America. They're not optimistic about it. They're not having kids. Young people aren't having sex. They're not meeting. They're not mating. The pool of emotionally and economically viable men shrinks every day, which lessens household formation. So we have a real issue. Young people are enraged. So it turns every cut, every movement into an opportunistic infection because, quite frankly, they are just pissed off. They look up, they see wealth, exceptional wealth across my generation and people in certain industries, and they are really struggling. Their purchasing power is going down, and the incumbents create artificial scarcity on campus. We take pride in rejecting 90% of our applicants. So the incumbents who already have a degree see their degree go up in value. We get very concerned with housing and traffic once we own a housing. Housing permits are sequestered from young people. Housing prices have gone from $290 to $420 in the last 4 years. So a young person, a house, stocks that I don't own skyrocket in value. Let's have COVID relief and flush the markets and take assets way up, because if 1 million people dying would be bad, would be tragic if I got less wealthy. And we're doing it on their credit card. Young people have every reason to be enraged, and every issue they see, they look up, they get angry, and they see someone doing better than them. And then every day it is speedballed in their face that they are failing, that they are not doing as well as everyone around them. We have lost the script. Our kids are more anxious and more depressed and more obese and more addicted. And we have made a purposeful decision to let this happen by ensuring the people around this table stay wealthy at the cost of young people.
Holy cow.
And he pointed to the table at the end. I'm like,
right.
Wow. Okay.
These people sitting around MSNBC. I mean,
yeah, he's like, you latte liberals.
Can you,
the problem.
Can you make it?
Make what, latte?
Right now? No, 30 years old. 30 years old in this country.
No, you can't. Nope. No way.
What is it that
Large
stops?
number of things. Large numbers. I mean, Gay Ribble was in here yesterday talking about baby boomers, and once they pass away, largest transfer of wealth we're going to see in this nation for a while. That's part of the reason at that point is that there hasn't or isn't a system right now that is a meritocracy. It isn't a system that rewards the idea of showing up at your job every day, 40 hours a week or more, putting your time in, that ladder climb, those promotions, that ability to get ahead. Those ladders, as in my opinion, as the baby boomers climbed the ladder, they knocked the rungs out below them as they went to make sure we couldn't follow.
Here, I was having this conversation with my children the other day about my generation. I'm a millennial. I'm the oldest age of the millennials. And give us a call, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Why is it not working? Why is the American dream not working for young people? I think one of the issues is my generation was taught this phrase, which is a total lie. Follow your dreams. I think it's a load of I think it's a load. Bill's taking
Explain
calls
that to me. Yeah. What do you mean?
Because you had this notion as a millennial out there that it would all just work out.
Yeah.
I follow my dreams.
Yeah.
And it will all work out. No. Get serious about your future and the steps you need to take to get where you want to be. And if you're a man, get serious about providing for that future family you want to have.
And as you outlined it, who was responsible for that message of follow your dreams, though?
Oh, it was what was taught in our schools.
Well,
Yeah,
schools,
I was taught
schools,
Yeah.
parents,
Yeah.
grandparents, and in our era, the people that were teaching us, the boomers, the generation above us.
Yeah.
So that, in part, again, see where I'm kind of pointing
Yeah.
back at? I mean, there is an issue there, and again, they're talking about following their dreams. But remember, as you're following your dreams, they took out the planks and the ability for you to do that. We changed structures in this in the country for now maybe going out there and following your dream. Let's say that it is you really like musical instruments and you want to just repair the musical instruments. You can't earn enough to buy a house or car, so you can't follow your dream. You want to go become a teacher. That in the first few years really difficult financially. You can't go follow your dream. I know many teachers that have washed out in that first 5 years. So we have put the structure in place so that you can't.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Nick, we're going to get to you in just a second. Guys, for those of you with a full head of hair, congratulations. Studies show that one of the most attractive physical features is a full head of hair. Want to know the least attractive and most aging? Well, it's hair loss. And no amount of car, house, or success can make up for that thinning or balding, as it leaves the greatest lasting physical impression. It doesn't have to be that way. Advanced Hair is the quick one-day solution for your hair loss. No more expensive pills or special shampoos, just your very own natural hair guaranteed to grow. And with Advanced Hair, your new hair will grow for life. Advanced Hair has improved tens of thousands of lives, including top radio personalities across the country. Did I mention your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day? For a free consultation, call 720-459-HAIR. That's 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. You can visit them online by going to advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. Nick, Denver, you're on the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. And I had the radio off, so I wasn't quite sure which direction the conversation was going. But I'd like to pick up where you were talking about follow your dreams.
Yeah.
It is a complete lie. Some people people have different talents in different directions. You might want to be an opera singer, but you're just not born with the talents to do that. So you have to go where your talents are. It's that simple. I mean, a lot of people, for instance, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Nick, it also gets into just kind of like how you're prepared all through middle school and high school. So much of what you have to deal with. Like, I would have loved to have sat in a class, and maybe some schools offer this. They didn't at my school, or at least I never took the class, where it's like, okay, this is how you're going to prepare yourself financially to be successful in life. Here's what a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at 8% is going to do to your finances versus a 15-year adjustable rate mortgage at 2%. Just helping people with the stuff they actually need.
Exactly right.
Part of that. But do you feel like, well, I'll ask you this, more than just the follow your dream stuff that was pushed on us. What do you think about the system itself? Like, why young people can't buy a house right now? Why?
Because the system is rigged. Okay, the reason why people can't buy a house, most people can't buy a house, because it's unaffordable. Well, why is it unaffordable? Because the government in the last 30 years has been spending a hell of a lot more money than was coming in, and it's priced everything out of the market. It's distorted the market. And the average person making 50, 60 grand a year can't afford it. It's that simple. I mean, this is basic math.
Do you think this is going to hurt Joe Biden? Do you think I kind of feel like we're 1979, where things just aren't going well. We're in this malaise. Young people really don't have a bright future in this country. Do you think that will result in any changes at the ballot box?
I hope so. Now, let me backtrack. They say the number one issue of the Gen Z generation should be the fact that we are $35 trillion in the hole, and we're going into the hole at whatever the rate is, $1 million every 5 minutes or whatever it is. And if you're Gen Z, somewhere in the early 20s, and let's say you don't die tragically of a disease or something else, you're going to be on this planet 50, 60, 70 years. And most of that time you're on this planet, you're going to be paying off the debts that my generation and future generations have left you. And the number one issue for Gen Z generation should be this incredible debt.
Yeah.
Because
37 trillion.
Is it 37 already?
I think it's up near that.
Well, it was 35 just a month and a half ago. I mean, that goes to show how out of control. And you know as well as I do There's such a thing as economic laws in this universe, and it doesn't care about your skin color or whether you're tall or short or anything like that. It just is. It's basic math. So that's the number one issue that Gen Z should be worried about, all this debt that we're accumulating, because I'm 78 years old now. Chances are in 10 years I'm going to be gone. But they're going to be around 50, 60 years, and they're going to be paying for all this profligate spending.
Yep.
That should be the number. And I'm sure we're out of time.
No, Nick, I appreciate the call. You're right. It's 34.5 trillion. And
Jeez.
At this point, it's just kind of funny money, right?
Thanks for the call, Nick.
Nick, really do appreciate the call. Right. Like, what happened to our lives between 25 trillion and 35 trillion?
Yeah. No, and that's the reason why no one cares. You're
right,
exactly right.
right.
You're exactly, because the debt doesn't have an impact on your day-to-day life. An example of this would be, imagine if you were in your 20s and mom and dad paid all your credit card bills. You never saw the bill. It went to mom and dad, and they wrote the check.
Yep.
Would it ever enter your mind about how much you are spending with that little plastic rectangle? Never would cross your mind.
You know, at CCU, they provide personal finance classes. So speaking of CCU, do you have a high school student considering their college plans? Are they ready to discover more about their gifts and talents? Do you hope to see them become part of the next generation of Christian leaders? Your student is invited to Colorado Christian University's Discovery Preview. This week-long event is completely free. Discovery Preview is designed for students who desire to seek God's purpose and calling in their lives. Students are immersed in the community, culture, and mission of CCU. Workshops focused on calling, career, and Christ-centered leadership help them explore their unique strengths and potential career options. CCU's Christ-centered community takes students on a Colorado adventure to experience the beauty of the Rocky Mountains. Eligible students can also qualify for a $1,250 annual scholarship for attending. Don't miss Discovery Preview this summer, June 17th through the 21st. The event is designed for juniors and seniors in high school. And again, it's absolutely free. To learn more, go to ccu.edu/discovery. That's ccu.edu/discovery. Text message here for you, Billy.
Yeah.
Please elaborate on how the previous generation have knocked the rings out.
Yeah, I was just going to respond to that person on the text, and things like taking away unions, taking away pensions, taking away retirement funds, not worried about equal pay for equal hours, not worried about raising minimum wage, not worried about a livable wage, not worried about healthcare being attached to your employment, not worried about not being able to get healthcare if you can't get a full-time job, even though you're working 3 20-hour week gigs. So those type of ideas, the means that the baby boomers used to get into houses, to climb the corporate ladder, to put retirement money away, don't exist anymore. The spread of wealth from the average median worker and the executive is far different today than it was when the baby boomers were coming up. When the baby boomers were coming up, you could have a moderate 40-hour-a-week job, one income family, wife stays home. You could afford a house, a car, vacations, and help your kids with their education. You can't. You can't even afford, in some cases, to buy yourself the first house or the apartment. God forbid, afford the kid. You want to help impact abortion rates? You want to make this country more pro-life? Make it easier for them to have families. You want to see a change? Make the change.
To your point, U.S. fertility rates fall to record low. Wall Street Journal. I think it's part of it. I think we also have a culture that doesn't fully embrace
and I wish
our
culture would embrace raising families, like giving them the advantages that they need in order to raise them. Things like, I don't know, mandatory maternal leave. How
about Hungary's or is it Turkey's approach where
you have to tell me what that one is?
I think it's you get to 4 kids and you never pay taxes for the rest of your life. I like that.
I like that too because I have 4, but I'm a little against that based on the motivation to just pump out the children's.
You want to talk about being pro-life?
But oh man, we can't do that right now. But that's an interesting idea.
Look, fellow homeowners, Jeff Hunt here, and today I've got something truly special to share with you. Ever dreamt of effortlessly transforming your home into a haven of organization and efficiency? Well, listen up, because I've got just the solution for you. Roll them out shelves. Let me paint you a picture of my recent experience with Joyce and Brent with Roll them out shelves. It was like having family walk through my door. Seriously, these folks aren't just professional. They're meticulous, caring, and so personable. Working with them felt like having my mom and brother right there beside me, kind, considerate, and always making sure everything was just right. Let me tell you, their attention to detail is unparalleled. They measured every nook and cranny, asked all the right questions, and ensured that every shelf and drawer was tailor-made to fit my needs perfectly. The result? Say goodbye to chaos and hello to beautifully organized shelves showcasing all my essentials. But here's the best part. You don't have to break the bank for this type of transformation. For less than $1,000, you can embark on your very own home makeover journey with Roll 'em Out shelves. And let me assure you, these shelves are built to last. Crafted from sturdy Baltic birch, built right here in Colorado, and backed by a lifetime guarantee. You can trust that your space will stay organized for years to come. So what are you waiting for? Give Joyce and Brent, the dynamic duo behind Roll 'em Out Shelves, a call today at 303-475-9601 or visit their website at rollemoutshelves.com for a free in-home estimate. Trust me, folks, the process is a breeze and you'll never look back. Be sure to tell them when you talk to them that Jeff Hunt sent you. All right. Part of the problem too is that we just have these people leading our country, man.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause. 4 more years. 4 more years. 4 more years.
Pause. I love the text here that suggested he should have said 4 more beers.
Yes, I like that.
Much better crowd response.
All right, we'll get to your calls and texts, and we got a lot of them. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Up next on 710 KNUS is Charlie Kirk. We've had an incredible show today.
It's been fun.
It's been great. We dove into how your compassion is actually hurting people.
That was
or at
so
least
good.
The government's compassion is hurting people. Dr. Tom Copeland joined us in the 7 o'clock hour. We did Trump trial updates. We got into Christian nationalism with William Wolfe and how he's working to keep churches from going woke.
That for me was best conversation we've done in the last 2 weeks easily.
Nice.
I loved that conversation. A lot of give and take. We came to different conclusions, but we don't yell or scream. And I appreciate the conclusions he was coming to because as I was hoping, a lot of the criticism of him I found to be very inaccurate and unfair. I understand where he's coming from.
You did a lot of research.
Yeah,
a lot of your homework.
Yeah, I did. I spent a lot of time listening to him to figure out who he is. What's he doing? Yeah, it was good. I really appreciate it. I hope he comes back. That was fun.
So right now is the Supreme Court oral arguments on President Trump's presidential immunity. We're going to have Christy Burton Brown with us tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to dive into those details. How is this likely to turn out? This is a big one. Out of all the cases, I think this one is 30, 40, 50 years from now has the biggest impact on the future of our country.
Yeah, maybe we'll take text messages on who Biden gets to assassinate first. If they rule in favor. Who's the list?
Totally unrestricted immunity. Go at it, President.
Yep, exactly.
So a lot at stake. Hey, it's going to be 75 today with afternoon thunderstorms, and then it gets cool for the rest of the week. So today's the nice one.
Enjoy
it because it's going to not be till Monday or Tuesday before you're getting warm weather again. So thanks again. If you missed the show, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast there. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram. Website 710knus.com. Till tomorrow, you're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. We appreciate you spending time with us today. Hope you have a good one.